Chapter 587. Sky Dome Realm. Xing Hui's figure flashed, and he directly arrived at the book creation hall where Zhang Zhen was. Due to Venerable Master Zhu Zhao's heavy injuries, almost all of Heaven's Dome's affairs had fallen on Venerable Master Firmament's shoulders. Qing Su did not want to trouble Venerable Master Firmament for the matter of selling the cultivation method. It just so happened that Venerable Master Zhangzhen was in charge of the affairs of the scripture hall, so he knew the core members of Heaven's Dome quite well. Mr. Pak Hui. Seeing Xing Hui arrive, Yuling, who was at the entrance of the book creation hall, quickly stood up and greeted him cautiously. After becoming a member of the council, Xing Hui's status could not be compared to before. She could no longer be as casual as before. Is the Exalted Master here? The Exalted Master is currently in charge of both the Foreign Affairs Hall and the Book Creation Hall. He is currently in the Foreign Affairs Hall, and the one in charge of the Book Creation Hall is his assistant. The Foreign Affairs Hall. Xing Hui nodded and was about to turn around and leave. However, just as Xing Hui was about to leave, Yuling seemed to have thought of something. After hesitating for a moment, she asked Xing Hui, "Sir Pak Hui, is our Sky Dome realm in a very dangerous situation right now?" Situation? Xing Hui looked at Yuling. He could clearly feel the worry in this woman's heart. Even someone like Yuling, who was always by Zhang Zhen's side, was worried about the future of Sky Dome. It could be seen what the others were thinking. Don't worry, all dangers will pass. The Vault of Heaven is indeed in a bit of trouble at the moment, but I believe that this kind of trouble will vanish in a short time. The Vault of Heaven has been established for more than 1,000 years. What kind of storms and waves has it not experienced? Since they have been safe and sound for more than 1,000 years, then I believe that even if another 1,000 years, 3,000 years, or even 10,000 years pass, they will still be able to continue to exist. Hearing Xing Hui's words, Yuling nodded vigorously. I believe in Sir Pak Hui. Don't think too much. Just help Zhangzhen Exalted Master with the matters of the Book Creation Hall. Xing Hui said and took a step forward. In the next moment, he had already disappeared in front of the Book Creation Hall. As the surrounding space shuttled, he was already outside the External Affairs Hall when he reappeared. As the name suggested, the External Affairs Hall was responsible for the external affairs of the firmament continent. The establishment of the Vault of Heaven naturally required many contacts with the outside world, and with contacts, it was easy for conflicts to arise. The External Affairs Hall was responsible for coordinating conflicts with other forces. This palace needed a powerful force to guard it. In the past, esteemed Zhu Zhao was in charge of this palace. Whenever there was a dispute between the Heaven Dome sect and some large sects, esteemed Zhu Zhao only needed to show up, and those large sects naturally had to step aside obediently. Even some top forces didn't dare to confront esteemed Zhu Zhao if they didn't have the absolute right to do so. The name and deterrence of an ultimate master was not something that an ordinary Saint Realm expert could compare with. However, as esteemed Zhu Zhao was seriously injured and went into seclusion to recuperate, the Firmament Exalted Master had to coordinate the overall situation. The affairs of the External Affairs Hall naturally fell to esteemed Zhangzhen Exalted Master, who had reached the peak of the Saint Realm. Although esteemed Zhangzhen Exalted Master was in charge of the External Affairs Hall, the deterrence of a peak celestial phenomenon expert was far from being comparable to that of esteemed Zhu Zhao. As a result, the firmament continent had encountered all kinds of troubles in a short period of time. This could be seen from the bustling passers-by coming and going in the External Affairs Hall. The atmosphere in the firmament continent is obviously not peaceful. No wonder Yuling would ask such a worried question. Xing Hui looked at the many members of the firmament continent who were in a hurry and deeply realized the importance of strength to a large organization. After a moment of silence, Xing Hui finally stepped into the External Affairs Hall. At this time, outside the External Affairs Hall, there were 3 Golden Core Realm cultivators and 2 Almighties who had cultivated divine powers waiting there. The door of esteemed Zhangzhen Exalted Master's office was tightly shut. It was obvious that esteemed Zhangzhen Exalted Master was busy with something inside. Xing Hui did not recognize the 3 Golden Core Realm cultivators, but there were 2 Almighties. One was Bai Qi, The other was esteemed Zhu Zhao, and the other was Yulan, a almighty-level disciple who had cultivated divine powers. Seeing Tsing Hui arrive, Bai Qi did not say anything. Yulan raised her tired face and looked at Tsing Hui. In the end, she nodded slightly and greeted him. No matter what, Tsing Hui was someone who had almost become an illuminated disciple and was also her junior brother. She still had to greet him. Thud thud. Qing Su waited outside for less than a while before a series of hurried footsteps rang out from outside. Afterwards, Taoist Wu Fa, who was also a powerful figure, walked in hurriedly with a sliver of anger. When he saw Bai Qi, Yulan, and so on waiting outside, he was slightly surprised at first before immediately saying, "Bai Qi, Yulan, are you busy right now? If you're not, why don't you come with me? The people of the Divine Ghost sect have gone too far." Not only did they take away the clear jade spring that originally belonged to our firmament continent, they even injured my personal disciples. 3 of our Golden Core Realm Outer Circle members were also killed. If we don't teach them a lesson, the world will think that we are afraid of the Divine Ghost sect. The Divine Ghost sect actually took our clear jade spring. Do they want to start an all-out war with us? Bai Qi said with a hint of anger on his face. Still? Could it be? Bai Qi suppressed his anger and nodded. The red bamboo forest was also taken by them. The red bamboo forest. The red bamboo core produced in the red bamboo forest is a treasure that can dissolve the impurities in qi. Its value is not much lower than the clear jade spring. The Divine Ghost sect really has guts. Yulan frowned and said, "I remember that the Divine Ghost sect has no connection with the Heavenly Tao. Why did the Heavenly Tao attack our firmament continent, and the Divine Ghost sect also interfere?" The Divine Ghost sect has no connection with the Heavenly Tao, but they are one of the powers that are extremely close to the Divine Wilderness. Half a month ago, the Divine Wilderness Thunder God King came to our firmament continent, wanting to pull us into their Divine Wilderness. In the end, they were rejected by the firmament continent's people. Who would have thought that they would be so despicable, allowing the Divine Ghost sect to attack our firmament continent? Heh, don't you know what the people of the Divine Wilderness are like? They are simply a group of cowards that only know how to fight among themselves. It is said that 10,000 years ago, they once fought against the Heavenly Tao and the Eternal Immortal Emperor while he was down. If not for the Divine Wilderness dragging them down, how could the Immortal Emperor have been defeated so quickly to the point that he had no choice but to destroy the Divine Wilderness world, destroying the world where the transmission array was located, and even the void, cutting off the Heavenly Tao and the Eternal Immortal Emperor's path of invasion? Wu Fa Jinren sneered. Bai Qi and Yulan did not know much about this matter, so it was not good for them to speak too much. After all, in the battle 10,000 years ago, other than a few existences that barely managed to survive, no one knew the inside story. The survivors said that the Divine Wilderness had kicked the Immortal Emperor while he was down, causing the Immortal Emperor's army to be completely annihilated. The Divine Wilderness people accused the Immortal Emperor of destroying the Divine Wilderness world, and their sins were monstrous. If not for them gathering the remaining experts of the Divine Wilderness world and establishing the Divine Wilderness, the cultivation inheritance of the Divine Wilderness world would have been severed. They were the true inheritors of the Divine Wilderness world. Both sides had their own opinions. But no matter what, compared to those cultivators who relied on the Heavenly Tao and the Eternal for their so-called future, the Divine Wilderness was much better. At least they had a common enemy. It was just that they did not expect that the Divine Wilderness would do such a thing to make their enemies happy. They wanted to use this to force the Heavenly Tao to submit. The people of the Divine Wilderness hoped to swallow us, the Primal Chaos organizations, so as to achieve their goal of controlling the Primal Chaos Temple and dominating the Divine Wilderness world. If they could really bring out their courage to wage war against the Heavenly Tao and the Eternal, I believe that there would be many who would respond. Unfortunately, they do not dare. They are afraid of death. Even when they clearly had the advantage back then, they did not completely defeat the Heavenly Tao and the Eternal, and could only watch as they continued to grow. Now, the Heavenly Tao, relying on a rumor without any evidence, has faintly surpassed the Divine Wilderness and become the largest Primal Chaos organization in the Divine Wilderness world. There's no use in saying this now. We should discuss how to deal with the matter of the Red Bamboo Forest and Qing Yuchuan. If I'm not wrong, the Divine Ghost Sect is probably just a chess piece that the Divine Wilderness is using to test our Heavenly Tao. If our Heavenly Tao does not give a strong response, they will definitely take a mile after taking an inch. The problem is that our Heavenly Tao does not have enough strength to deal with the encroachment of the Divine Ghost Sect. We can only look at the esteemed Master Tsongzhen. Let's see if he can reasonably transfer people to let us take back the Red Bamboo Forest and Qing Yuchuan that we have lost. I am currently in a nameless valley 300 kilometers away from Qing Yuchuan. The Divine Ghost Sect has sent 3 almighty beings and over 100 Jindan experts outside. They can find my location at any time. Whether to fight or to retreat, I have to quickly get an accurate response from the esteemed Master Tsongzhen. Otherwise, if the people of the Divine Ghost Sect find me and surround me, I'm afraid it will be even more dangerous. Wu Fa Jinren frowned. Then you go first. Although the Red Bamboo Forest has been occupied, the Red Bamboo Heart still needs some time to mature. Furthermore, the Divine Ghost Sect is only probing. They do not dare to truly start a war with us. Bai Qi said. Wu Fa Jinren nodded. Then his gaze fell on Tsing Hui. Considering Tsing Hui's Battle of Chaos sequence, he politely nodded and greeted him. Pak Hui, why are you looking for the esteemed Master Tsongzhen? Tsing Hui looked at Wu Fa Jinren, Bai Qi, and the others. They were all facing big problems, and he did not want to trouble the esteemed Master Tsongzhen with the chaos method. Fortunately, Wu Fa Jinren, Bai Qi, Yulan, and the others were also core members of the Heavenly Tao, and the nature of the conversation was similar. He immediately said, "Not long ago, I killed the Black Ice Saint. Before he died, I interrogated him about his chaos level, which was 29. I want to see if anyone in the Heavenly Tao needs to take over." Tsing Hui's tone was calm, as if he was not talking about a big matter. However, when Wu Fa Jinren, Bai Qi, Yulan, and the others heard this, they were all shocked. The Black Ice Saint? You killed the Black Ice Saint? How is that possible? The Black Ice Saint is an almighty? You are only in the true energy realm? And you are in the transformative realm. How could you kill him? The 3 of them asked almost at the same time. Tsing Hui had cultivated the supreme immortal technique, shadowless stance. His aura had become even more obscure, so even though he had broken through to the divine realm, he did not show it in the Chaos Temple at all. In fact, even in the real world, Wu Fa Jinren and the others could not see Tsing Hui's specific realm if they did not look carefully, let alone in the Chaos Temple. If Tsing Hui had cultivated shadowless stance to the small success level, even the invincible giants in the divine realm would not be able to see through him, let alone them. Chapter 588. Reverend Wu Fa, Bai Qi, and Yulan all looked at Qing Su in surprise. Among them, Bai Qi looked at him like he was looking at an immature young man who liked to joke around and did not know how to be serious. After all, as far as they knew, Tsing Hui was less than 40 years old. In the eyes of these cultivators, who were at least 300 years old, he was completely young and childish. It's not impossible to kill Holy Master Xuanbing. Moreover, I don't have to lie about this matter. Even Holy Master Xuanbing's chaos technique is in my hands. How can it be fake? Qing Su said calmly. He did not go out of his way to explain. Yulan, Wu Fa Jinren, Bai Qi, and the others looked at each other. Their faces were full of doubts, but as Tsing Hui said, he didn't have to lie. With Holy Master Xuanbing's chaos technique in his hands, it was enough to prove whether Holy Master Xuanbing was alive or dead. We don't doubt you, but this news is too shocking. After a while, Yulan let out a long breath. In the end, she looked at Tsing Hui and said, "If you trust me, can you let me verify this chaos technique? If you can prove that it's really the 29th level primal chaos technique of sacred venerable black ice, I can make the decision to find a suitable buyer for you. This buyer's final price for this primal chaos technique will not be lower than 200 Dao runes." Yulan is the disciple of Zhu Zhao Venerable. I naturally trust you. Tsing Hui didn't hesitate. He simulated Holy Master Xuanbing's chaos technique and handed it to Yulan. Chaos technique was the only thing in the Chaos Divine Palace that could be directly traded. After receiving the Chaos technique given by Tsing Hui, Yulan couldn't wait to try it. Bai Qi and Wu Fei also stared at Yulan with sparkling eyes. An almighty was an important existence to any force. A sect might have thousands or even tens of thousands of golden core experts, but the number of almighty experts could be counted on one hand. In the entire divine wilderness world, other than the heavenly Tao, eternal and divine wilderness, no other faction dared to say that they had more than 3 digits of almighty experts. After all, the amount of resources needed to advance from a high-grade golden core to a perfected high-grade golden core was too great. Furthermore, even if one had a perfected high-grade golden core, the probability of condensing a golden core was less than half. With such a shocking probability, even if the rich and overbearing heavenly Tao lost an almighty, it would be enough to cause the heavenly Tao to be in great pain. It would also allow the other forces to adjust their strategies in certain aspects. After a long while, Yulan let out a long breath. Her starry eyes were filled with shock. Seeing Yulan, Wu Fei Jinren, and Bai, they could guess the result, but they still couldn't believe it. They asked, Yulan, how is it? Yulan met Metz, and Yulan nodded, Yolans? Hiss. Wu Fei Jinren and Bai Qi couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. At the same time, they turned to Tsing Hui in shock. You actually killed Saint Master Xianbing, the almighty Saint Master Xianbing? Tsing Hui just nodded and didn't say anything. Pak Hui, if you're willing to let me contact a buyer for you, I'll do it now. I don't dare to say more, but I can guarantee you that the price of this primal chaos incantation will definitely not be lower than 200 Dao rhymes. Yulan solemnly promised. Looking at Tsing Hui, her gaze was no longer as careless as before. Thank you. In addition to Dao rhymes, I also need a token of the world of battle. If he doesn't have enough Dao rhymes, he can offset it with the token of the world of battle. I can let him offset it with 120 Dao rhymes. Tsing Hui nodded slightly. Token of the world of battle? Okay, I'll contact him now. After Yulan spoke, her figure flashed, and she disappeared from the Sky Dome realm. Her matter could be delayed as well. Wu Fei Jinren watched Yulan leave, and his gaze paused on Tsing Hui for a moment. He hesitated for a while, and said, Pak Hui, I don't know if you were lucky enough to kill Saint Master Xianbing, or, do you really have the ability to kill an almighty? It depends on what almighty. If it's not a top almighty, it shouldn't be difficult to kill. Tsing Hui said. The top almighty he mentioned naturally didn't refer to the people who had studied divine powers to the peak like Dharma King Su and Saint Golden Feather, but the terrifying existence like him who had evolved supreme divine powers and could fight across realms. However, Wu Fei Jinren and Bai Qi obviously didn't know this. Hearing that Tsing Hui was confident that he could defeat the enemy's divine powers, their eyes lit up at the same time. Pak Hui, I don't know if you can go to the Clear Jade Spring and help me. Many of the almighty in the Sky Dome realm are guarding those precious resource points. It's not easy to get them out in this troubled period. Even if I ask Zhangzhen Shangren for help, he may not be able to send enough experts to help me. Therefore, I can only put my hope on you. The Clear Jade Spring, Tsing Hui thought for a while. Now his cultivation was not weak, and he could slowly repay the various favors he owed to the Sky Dome realm. However, his favors were owed to Zhangzhen Shangren, Zhujiao Shangren, and the Sky Dome Master, not Wu Fei Jinren, who had no friendship with him. He said, I have to talk to Zhangzhen Shangren first. If Zhangzhen Shangren thinks that I should go to the Clear Jade Spring with you, I will follow his orders. Of course. When Zhangzhen Shangren is done, we will go to see him. Although Tsing Hui didn't promise immediately, Wu Fei Jinren was still quite confident that he could persuade him to go to the Clear Jade Spring. Pak Hui. While Tsing Hui and Wu Fei Jinren were waiting, Yolan's figure had appeared again. I have discussed with my friend. He is willing to buy your chaos secret art for a writ of the world of battle and 100 Dao rhymes. However, he is currently in some trouble and can't send his avatar to trade with you. Do you want to wait for a while or go by yourself? If you go by yourself, he is willing to add 10 Dao rhymes to the journey. I will go by myself. Tsing Hui said. 10 Dao rhymes were still Dao rhymes, and he really lacked Dao rhymes now. Well, I will contact him and ask him to provide the coordinates. Yulan said. At this time, the door of the External Affairs Hall of Zhangzhen Shangren opened, and an old man in the gold core realm with a somewhat gloomy expression walked out. After seeing the people waiting outside, he only bowed slightly to Yulan, Bai Qi, Wu Fa Zhenren, and other powerful figures, then turned and left. Obviously, his request to Zhangzhen Shangren was not agreed. The two of us will go in first. Wu Fa Zhenren on the side was afraid that Xing Hui would send his avatar to trade with the powerful figure and fall into a weak state, so he hurriedly said first. Then, without giving Yulan a chance to stop him, he pulled Xing Hui into the inner hall. In the palace, Zhangzhen Shangren was flipping through the information at this time, and in front of him, there were many messages submitted from various places in the territory under the jurisdiction of Tianqiong. The ones that could be directly submitted to him were all in the Gold Core realm or were related to important matters of this level. The matters below the Gold Core realm did not need Zhangzhen Shangren, a peak powerful figure, to deal with personally. Lifei and Pak Hui. Zhangzhen Shangren heard the footsteps and looked at Xing Hui and Wu Fa Zhenren. At the same time, he put down the information in his hands. What do you two want? Wu Fa, are you at Clear Yuchuan? Is there a problem with Clear Yuchuan? The Divine Ghost sect sent 3 almighty experts to occupy the Clear Jade Spring. I had no choice but to retreat with my men. But even so, many of our people were still captured by the Divine Ghost sect. I came here to ask Master to transfer some people to me. It would be best if you could send 2 almighty experts to help us take back the Clear Jade Spring and save our Heaven Dome sect disciples who were captured by them. 2 powerful figures. Zhangzhen Shangren frowned. Master Zhangzhen furrowed his brows. You should understand that the Divine Ghost sect is still mainly probing, but on Blazing Mountain, there are real battles and small battles. The people of the Heavenly Dao in that direction will not give us a way out. Once we lose, it will be very difficult for anyone to survive. Therefore, that battlefield and the battlefield of Little Sun Mountain are the most important. I understand. Wu Fa Zhenren turned his gaze to Xing Hui. Sending 2 powerful figures may be a little difficult, but if you can send one of them and let Her Excellency Pak Hui assist me, I will be able to take back Clear Yuchuan. Pak Hui? Song Zhen's gaze immediately fell on Pak Hui. At the same time, he looked sternly at Wu Fa Zhenren. Why do you want Pak Hui to go and help you guard Clear Yuchuan? What do you know? Wu Fa Zhenren saw Song Zhen's expression suddenly become so stern and couldn't help but be slightly startled. Master, did you get some information? Song Zhen asked sternly. Xing Hui naturally understood Song Zhen's meaning. The main reason for his stern words was because he guessed that Wu Fa Zhenren knew about his chaotic level. He immediately explained, it's just that I killed the powerful figure Xianbing Saint and told Wu Fa Zhenren that I broke through to the transcendent realm and derived a transcendent ability. Only the top transcendent realm experts can defeat me. Therefore, Wu Fa Zhenren wanted to take advantage of the fact that I have not been assigned a task to bring me to Clear Yuchuan in advance to guard it. It's not what you think. Song Zhen was slightly startled when he heard Xing Hui's words. Then he said with some surprise, You killed Xianbing Saint? Xianbing Saint is the son of Tiandao Qing Wei Tao. He is a powerful figure worthy of his name. Even if he was lucky to become a powerful figure and his foundation is shallow, he is definitely not you. Speaking of this, he suddenly realized the second half of Xing Hui's words. He was stunned at first, then immediately stood up and stared at Xing Hui in shock. Pak Hui boy, what did you just say? You said that you broke through to the transcendent realm and derived a transcendent ability? You really derived a transcendent ability? Wu Fa Zhenren was also startled. He didn't show as much shock and disbelief as Song Zhen. He just asked curiously, didn't His Excellency Pak Hui say that he had just reached the true energy realm a few years ago? Could it be a miscommunication? In fact, don't interrupt. Before Wu Fa Zhenren could finish, he was interrupted by Song Zhen with a wave of his hand. He stared at Xing Hui without blinking. I seem to have heard wrongly just now. Say it again. You said that you broke through to the transcendent realm and derived a transcendent ability? Xing Hui understood that his achievement in such a short period of time was indeed enough to shock people. However, he now had the confidence to even fight against a divine being. He didn't have to hide like before. He nodded slightly and said, "Yes, Master. I broke through to the transcendent realm and derived a transcendent ability." Chapter 589. You've really derived a divine power? You've been on the path of cultivation for 40 years? Xing Hui looked at Master Zhang in front of him and understood the shock he would bring if he revealed this news, but he could only say, "Master, if you need my help with anything, just let me know. Before I grew up, I received all kinds of help from you. Now that I have some ability, I should lend Tianqiong a helping hand when he is in danger." "You?" Master Zhang sat down and motioned for Xing Hui to pause. Let me take a break. After a while, he let out a heavy breath and then turned his gaze to Zhenren Wufa. "Let me talk to Pak Hui alone. For the time being, don't spread the news of him breaking through to the divine power realm." Zhenren Wufa naturally understood the impact of having an additional trump card of the divine power realm. After all, many top forces more or less knew how many divine power realm experts they had. In the situation where those divine power realm experts kept each other in check, a completely free divine power realm expert could often play an amazing role. He immediately said, "I understand. I will not mention this to anyone. Even Bai Qi and Yulan, I will ask them to keep it a secret as much as possible." "Well, I will keep the matter of your Qing Yuchuan in mind. If there is a suitable person, I will immediately send him to you." "Thank you, Master." Zhenren Wufan nodded and retreated. Pak Hui, although Xianbing is not weak, he has many divine weapons given to him by Qingwei Holy Woman to protect himself. If you want to kill him, it will not be an easy task. Moreover, you claim that you can't defeat anyone other than the top forces. What kind of divine power did you derive? Master Zhang said seriously. Xing Hui was silent for a moment. He could not give a final judgment as to what level the divine power of chasing light belonged to. He estimated that it was a supreme divine power, but before he really saw a supreme divine power, he could not give an accurate answer. He just said, "It's not an ordinary divine power. This is no ordinary divine ability." The Zhongshan monk sucked in a deep breath and shot a glance at Qing Su. "I already knew that you were extraordinary, kid. You would definitely achieve great things in the future. I even considered taking you as my disciple in the past, but I found it very difficult to accept the fact that my previous disciples were useless, so I never formally asked you to take me as your disciple. As a result, I ended up ruining the relationship between you and Zhu Zhao. I've always felt that it was a pity, afraid that you would waste your time without a master to guide you. However, I never thought that in just a dozen years, you would actually surpass the great feat that ordinary people could not accomplish in a few decades or even a few centuries, deriving abilities and reaching the godhood in a single breath." Xing Hui looked at Master Zhongshan. He had more or less felt that Master Zhongshan wanted to take him as his disciple, but, in the end, fate made a fool of him. When Master Zhongshan and Master Zhu Zhao were still humbling each other about who should be his master, he had already condensed a divine power and stepped into the realm of powerful forces. Moreover, with the mystery of the divine power of chasing light, it was unknown whether Master Zhongshan, who was at the peak of the powerful forces, could still suppress him. "If Zhu Zhao was not seriously injured, I would really take you to him and ask him if he regretted missing such a talented disciple like you." Master Zhongshan exalted said with some indignation. "Both of you have given me a lot of advice on my cultivation path. In my mind, both of you can be called teachers. Why should I care about such a trivial title?" Hearing Xing Hui's words, Master Zhongshan exalted stared at Xing Hui for a moment and finally nodded. "You're right. We are too pretentious. Moreover, we two old men think too highly of ourselves. You have used your own talent to prove to all of us that even without us, you can still break through a path that is far beyond our imagination. Moreover, with the divine power you have derived in the end, I believe that your future achievements will definitely be above mine." As for Master Zhu Zhao, he could not guarantee it. Master, if there is anything in Tianqiong that I can do for you, please let me know. As a member of Tianqiong, I am willing to contribute my own strength to Tianqiong. Xinghui went straight to the point. Master Zhongjin exalted nodded. After a moment, he seemed to have thought of something. His eyes focused and he quickly fell into deep thought. Xinghui looked at him from the side and did not want to disturb him. After a while, Master Zhongjin exalted glanced at Xinghui and said seriously, "Come with me." The next moment, the environment around him began to change rapidly. As the space shuttled and the light flowed, when the scene around him became clear again, he had already appeared outside the courtyard of Master Zhongjin Exalted. At this time, Master Zhongjin Exalted was in front of a huge expectation, thinking hard. When he saw Xinghui and Master Zhongjin Exalted, he turned his eyes to the two of them. Zhongjin? Pekui? Master Zhongjin Exalted looked at the chessboard in front of Master Zhongjin Exalted and could not help but sigh. It has been more than 10 years, but the mechanism on the chessboard still can't be solved. It seems that it really can't be solved. At present, we are in a crisis. Speaking of this, Master Zhongjin Exalted glanced at Xinghui, as if he no longer regarded Xinghui as an outsider. He continued, "In this case, it's very difficult for us to turn the tables under the suppression of the way of heaven. Even with the help of Jian Ying, we can't avoid the crisis of destruction. At present, I can't think of any solution, so I can only pin my hope on that cave mansion. You, Zhu Zhao, and Yuan Ri have been trying to deduce this chessboard for so many years, but you haven't succeeded. It can be seen that this mechanism is not something we can open with our strength. We have cleaned up all the mechanisms outside the cave mansion, and there is only one step left. We failed at the last step. How unwilling we are to admit defeat. If we can really open this cave mansion, with the great reputation of this great existence in the divine wilderness era, the many treasures produced in it will definitely make our heaven vault force improve greatly. The many treasures in this cave mansion may make our heaven vault force soar, but it may also make us gain nothing. This is the mentality of a gambler." Master Zhongjin Exalted sighed. The fact that Master Zhongjin Exalted Master, an invincible giant in the divine realm, pinned his hopes on such a slim hope showed how dangerous the situation was for the heaven vault force. Man can conquer nature. At present, the way of heaven does not intend to use the war of chaos to deal with us. In addition, in the recent battle, Lihan Holy Man has not returned, Qingwei Holy Man was seriously injured, and Anis Ruckus Holy Man's Daluo star disk was also damaged and difficult to repair in a short time. We have already gained a lot of time. During this time, there may be a new turning point. Time. Master Zhongjin Exalted Master shook his head. The reason why the way of heaven is willing to be dormant is not because we have destroyed 2 Dao Masters, but because they are waiting. The first Dao Master of the way of heaven, the Chaos Dao Master who is said to be immortal. Once the Chaos Dao Master can break through to the 3rd divine realm, his only drawback will be completely fixed. At that time, no one in the world can stop him. Even the Divine Master Ancient Wilderness and the Eternal Emperor Tai Yi will be no exception. Divine Master Ancient Wilderness, Emperor Tai. Xinghui was very familiar with these 2 existences. There were a total of 10 Supreme Masters in the Divine Wilderness. Almost all of these 10 Supreme Masters had the terrifying strength to kill a Divine Realm expert without giving him a chance to escape. Among these 10 people, Divine Master Ancient Wilderness was ranked 1st, Emperor Tai Yi was 2nd, and the Chaos Dao Master was 3rd. As for the 4th, it was Zhu Zhao. Master Zhu Zhao. This could be seen from the fact that the 5 Dao Masters of the Way of the Heavens had to set up a trap before they dared to attack esteemed Zhu Zhao. If they really fought head-on, even if the 5 Dao Masters had Anisrava Dao Master, who held the 17th level treasure Daluo star disk and whose cultivation was infinitely close to the 2nd level of the divine realm, it would still be difficult to avoid heavy losses. This was the deterrent power of esteemed Zhu Zhao. Due to the most obvious drawback of the Chaos Dao Master, his lack of killing means, Master Zhu Zhao even dared to kill his way into the way of heaven. As long as he did not go too deep and was careful not to fall into formations or traps, he could escape unscathed. This was also the reason why Master Zhu claimed that the way of heaven did not dare to easily bear his anger. Can Master Zhu really take that step? For us, the most difficult part of the first 3 levels of the Saint Realm isn't the second or third level, but the first level, the Domain Realm. The Domain Realm consists of the Domain Origin and the Domain Core. This requires the accumulation of precious treasures. Only when one's domain reaches the peak of the Domain Realm will they be able to touch upon the laws and step into the second level of the Saint Realm, the Insightful Void Realm. The third level of the Saint Realm requires the understanding and application of the laws. Similarly, it doesn't require much resources. Due to the destruction of the Divine Wilderness, if we want to obtain resources for the Domain Realm, we can only rely on the Primal Chaos Treasure Pavilion or the Primordial Cave Abode. This is why so many people are stuck at the Domain Realm. The Firmament Master continued with a solemn expression, 40 years ago, an invincible existence at the peak of the divine stage who could create a world with a single thought came into being. The Divine Wilderness, the Eternal Sect, and the Heavenly Tao Sect were the ones who benefited the most from it. Because of this, Divine Wilderness Sect, Eternal Sect, and Heavenly Tao Sect all stepped into the Insightful Void Realm. Now, 40 years have passed. God knows how powerful they have become. I think this is the reason why they had the courage to clear the area. Master Zhangzhen's heart was heavy. The difference in cultivation between each level of the Saint Realm might not be as great as the difference between the Golden Core Realm and the Divinity Realm, but it was not much smaller. It was not an exaggeration to say that the third level of the Saint Realm could suppress hundreds of experts at the first level of the Saint Realm. Even if the divine art could slightly reduce the gap between the levels. Master Zhu, Emperor Tai, and Divine Elder Ancient Desolation, which one of them had not maxed out the divine art? Although Master Zhu had the highest chance of breaking through, no matter who broke through first, the world would be swept away. When that time came, the divine wilderness would no longer have peace. Chapter 590. Zhangzhen Master looked at Firmament Master. He more or less understood why Firmament Master was so anxious to solve the chessboard mechanism. The owner of the cave behind the chessboard mechanism was also a supreme overlord who stood at the peak of the divine realm. If Firmament Master could really open the cave of this expert at the peak of the divine realm, with so many resources, Firmament Master would definitely soar to the sky. We don't have much time left. Firmament Master let out a long sigh. Not necessarily. Zhangzhen Master said slowly after a moment of silence. Firmament Master's eyes fell on Zhangzhen Master. Zhangzhen Master did not waste any time and directly pushed Xing Hui to Firmament Master. I came here mainly for Pak Hui. If Firmament Master has a chance to turn the situation around, besides Zhu Zhao, I'm afraid it's Pak Hui. Pak Hui? Firmament Master was a little confused. Pak Hui derived a divine power and stepped into the divine realm. Moreover, it's not an ordinary divine power, but a great divine power. Pak Hui derived a divine power? Firmament Master was shocked by Zhangzhen Master's words. He immediately looked at Xing Hui and said, How? How is this possible? If the information I collected is correct, he has cultivated for less than 40 years, right? Yes, less than 40 years. To be exact, 32 years. He's only 32 years old this year. Zhangzhen Shangren sighed with emotion. In 32 years, he has cultivated from a mortal to a powerful figure, and what he has cultivated is not an ordinary supernatural power. You should know better than me what this means, Song Qiong. With such talent, if we give him another 10 or 20 years, how much do you think he can grow to? Celestial body? Realm? Insightful void? Crushing vacuum? Firmament Master's eyes lit up when he heard Zhangzhen Master's words. However, after a while, his face darkened. 10 years? 20 years? Do we have another 10 or 20 years? Why not? Song Qiong, I think you are confused. What is the biggest difference between us chaos and those cultivation sects? This is our secret nature. We don't have any foundations or legacies. All we need to do is to take away the many branches in the real world. No matter how powerful the heavenly axiom is, It will take a lot of time and effort to find us. Perhaps we will lose a lot of resource points by doing so. However, as long as Pakhui can break through to the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth, the domain realm, the insightful emptiness realm, or even the void-shattering realm in the next 10 to 20 years, we will be able to take back everything we have lost and confront the heavenly axiom, the divine wilderness, and the eternity head-on. Saying this, Zhangzhen Exalted's eyes flashed. He doesn't even need to reach the vacuum-shattering realm. As long as Pakhui can reach the vacuum-shattering realm, he will be able to fight a vacuum-shattering realm master head-on, just like Zhu Zhao Exalted. When Xing Hui heard Master Zhangzhen mention Master Zhu Zhao, he suddenly reacted. The reason why people were so afraid of Zhu Zhao was because he had derived a great divine ability. Pakhui, Master Zhangzhen was a little hesitant. After all, even though the foundation of the Sky Dome realm was concentrated in the Sky Dome realm, the Sky Dome realm had also developed a considerable faction in the real world. Perhaps the strength of the Sky Dome realm could not be compared to the 1 hall, 3 sects, 6 schools, and 9 gates, but it was still an existence that was second only to these peak factions. He couldn't bear it. Zhangzhen, why are you still hesitating? If we can temporarily retreat from Tianhuang region, not only can we be at ease to look for the various treasures to cure Zhu Zhao, you can also calm down to deduce the chessboard mechanism. This is the best way to advance by retreating. Otherwise, sooner or later, the strength of Tianqiong will be exhausted by the way of the heavens and those forces that have their eyes on us until we have no power to fight back. Hearing Master Zhangzhen's words, Master Zhangzhen was silent for a long time before he turned his gaze back to Xing Hui. Pakhui, if we pour all the resources of Tianqiong into you, are you confident that you can break through to the vacuum-shattering realm within 20 years? Even if you can't break through to the vacuum-shattering realm, you can break through to the profound void realm. The profound void realm is a special state that allows you to escape into the void and turn into nothingness. You won't be afraid of any killing methods. Only when you can break through to the vacuum-shattering realm can you hurt the profound void realm experts. Only when you reach this realm can you be said to be in an invincible position. Xing Hui thought for a while and finally said, I don't know much about the law phenomenon, domain, and profound void realm. I also don't know what resources Tianqiong has. Therefore, I can't answer this question. After that, he added, I came to find Master Zhangzhen this time because I want to know more about this realm in detail. Please enlighten me. Although he had the world-burning incantation, he had already embarked on a different path after switching to the extreme sword principle. He didn't know whether the direction he should go next was to cultivate the law phenomenon, condense the domain, or other aspects. He could only rely on his understanding of the next realm and brainstorm to deduce the next cultivation method of the extreme sword principle. The law phenomenon, the domain realm, the profound void realm. Heavenly Master slightly adjusted his train of thought. I can give you an answer about the changes of these realms. First of all, law being of heaven and earth requires you to constantly study your own divine sense. When your divine sense resonates with the law of heaven and earth and is blessed by the power of heaven and earth, you will naturally enter the law being of heaven and earth. This kind of study doesn't care about the number of divine senses, but the degree of compatibility between the divine sense and the law of heaven and earth. Different divine senses conform to different laws of heaven and earth. The law phenomenon is actually a kind of amplification of divine senses. Master Zhangzhen, who was standing at the side, added, like my divine ability, I call it the Ksitigarbha technique. This divine ability is divided into 2 forms. One is my own form, and the other is my attack form. However, both forms allow me to control the power of the earth. I can use the power of the earth to increase the gravity around me by 200 times or even 100 times. At the same time, the minor divine ability that I developed allows me to use the power of the earth veins to teleport quickly. After this divine ability is evolved into the law embodiment of heaven and earth, the power of the divine ability will increase dramatically. Originally, the gravity around me will only increase by 200 times, but under the law embodiment of heaven and earth, I can increase it by 1,000 times or even more. More than 1,000 times? That's right. Under the maximum pressure of 1,000 times, the true origin energy and divine sense of an Almighty might be able to break through the suppression of gravity. However, their bodies and internal organs will definitely not be able to withstand it. Therefore, in a group battle, once I enter the law phenomenon realm, I can usually defeat dozens of Almighties within my attack range. If it is an ordinary golden core realm cultivator, within the range of gravity with me as the center, he will definitely die. When Master Tsongjin said this, there was a trace of regret in his eyes. It's a pity that the higher the gravity, the worse my control over it. Under the pressure of 1,000 times the gravity, I can no longer distinguish between friend and foe. Otherwise, if my divine sense cooperates with other people's divine sense, the lethality of the damage will definitely increase exponentially. My divine sense is a little different from Zongjin Exalted. I awakened the Kunpeng bloodline and condensed a divine-grade fighting body. The divine sense I awakened was the Void Seal. However, later on, I supplemented my main divine sense by studying small divine senses and formed an attack that simulated the collapse of the void. I named it the Grand Collapsing Art. I used the divine sense to form a space to trap the enemy and then let the space collapse. As I studied this power to the peak, I actually sensed the Dharma of the void. After entering the law embodiment of heaven and earth state with this Dharma of the void, I can draw in the turbulence of the void after the Grand Collapsing Art collapses the space, making the power soar. As for the next step, it is the realm. The materialization of the law phenomenon realm? That's right. In fact, the law phenomenon realm is supported by the power of the laws of heaven and earth. The realm relies on your understanding of the laws of heaven and earth. Then, you use your own will and the innate charm of some divine beasts to refine the origin of the realm and materialize it. It's a bit similar to the materialization of the battle physique from the blue netherworld realm to the vision saint realm. The only difference is that it's much harder to materialize the laws of heaven and earth than to materialize the battle physique. According to what you said, the law phenomenon realm should be more powerful than the realm, right? Why is the Grand Dominion realm ranked after the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth realm? Master Tsongjin and Master Tsongjin exchanged a look and finally said, in fact, this has to do with the origin of our cultivation system. Our cultivation system originated from the divine beasts and the divine beasts. That's how the divine beasts and the divine beasts are categorized. Moreover, do you really think that the law phenomenon realm is more powerful than the realm? You're completely wrong. The power of the law phenomenon realm is supported by heaven and earth, but the power of the realm is simulated and materialized by one's own strength. One is borrowed, and the other is one's own. How can they be compared? In fact, in the realm, it's very difficult, or even impossible, for Almighties to enter the law phenomenon realm. This is why the realm can easily defeat the law phenomenon realm. In the realm, the law phenomenon realm can't enter the law phenomenon realm. Xing Hui frowned. The cultivation system that simulated the growth of the divine beasts and the divine beasts was indeed prone to all kinds of problems and drawbacks. It was the same for the Golden Core realm and the Divinity realm, and it was the same for the Law Phenomenon realm and the realm. Perhaps, this cultivation system might not be as perfect as he imagined. Then, could he come up with a way to skip the Law Phenomenon realm and enter the realm? The characteristic of the realm was to rely on one's own comprehension of the laws, one's will, and the innate charm of the divine beasts to refine the origin of the realm and materialize it to affect the surrounding space and the world. The comprehension of the laws is like a key, the will is the strength of one's mind, and the innate charm is the strength of one's true chi. When the three are combined, one can cultivate the origin of the realm. If I want to skip the law phenomenon realm, I'll have to skip the condensation of my soul and study the laws. I can only work on the innate charm. It's impossible for a green netherworld realm expert to be a match for a prominent saint realm expert. However, if the green netherworld realm expert has enough true chi and its quality is high enough, it wouldn't be difficult for him to crush a prominent saint realm expert. Just like a never-ending realm expert, Even if he doesn't rely on the strength of his battle physique, he can still crush the battle physique of a prominent Saint Realm expert with his endless true chi. Innate charm. Only those divine beasts and divine beasts in the Saint Realm had it. In other words, if he wanted to reach this step, he had to have the strength to kill divine beasts and divine beasts. I need to comprehend sword force. Chapter 591. Spiritual will was, in fact, momentum. When one's spiritual will was strong enough to condense momentum, one could combine the laws and the innate charm into one and condense the origin of the domain. Xing Hui set his next cultivation goal as sword momentum. Even if the cultivation method he discovered could not be realized in the end, he could just turn back and cultivate the laws again. In the end, it would not be too serious. After the domain is the profound void realm. However, the cultivation of the domain involves the origin of the domain. The reason why only creatures related to space, such as Chaos and Kunpeng, are chosen to form the origin of the domain is mainly because of the cultivation of the profound void realm. For cultivators with the bloodline of the Golden Crow, they may not be able to use the innate charm of Chaos and Kunpeng to form the origin of the domain. However, in this way, the difficulty of entering the profound void realm will be much higher. After all, it is most convenient to comprehend the laws with the law of space. Even divinity, ancient wildness of the divine wilderness, and Emperor Tai of the eternal have embarked on the path of using the innate charm of chaos as the origin of the domain. Once a cultivator enters the profound void realm, he can integrate himself with the law and be in a state between an illusory life and a real life. Therefore, he will be invincible. The Firmament Master continued, the reason why there are so many people who have awakened the bloodline of the Kunpeng is because of this consideration. As for cultivators with the bloodline of the Golden Crow, it is because it is more convenient to cultivate in the early stage. After all, the Grand Sun is always hanging high in the sky. Cultivators can use the power of the Grand Sun to cultivate in any environment. Xing Hui nodded, Master, my sword intent has been perfected. If I want to push it to the level of sword momentum, I don't know how to do it. Perfected sword intent? The Firmament Master stared at Xing Hui for a moment in astonishment. However, when he thought that Xing Hui was able to derive a divine sense after more than 30 years of cultivation, he gradually returned to normal. I'm not a real cultivator of sword intent, so I don't know much about the transformation of sword intent to sword momentum. However, I have my own understanding of momentum. Intent can be understood as one's own will, and momentum can be understood as the will of a group. Just like what we often say about gathering the momentum of people, in fact, it is the will of the individual leading the group. Sword intent is limited to individuals, but sword momentum is bound to appear in a group. Group? Indeed, it's just like my force. My force is related to the blood of the Kunpeng that I've awakened. The Kunpeng is a legendary creature, it's tens of millions of miles long. Based on that, I've transformed my force into an empty space and then I've integrated it into my domain. If I just use my force, you will feel that the entire world is oppressing you. That kind of force isn't limited to one or two people, it's the entire world. You're alone, how can you resist it? Master Zhang, who was at the side, also said, the force of the firmament is the void, while my force is born from the earth. My force is heavy and suffocating. Besides, the force of the first sun is like the sun, vast and blazing, shining in all directions. The force of the candlelight is mysterious and noble, subduing the enemy without fighting. You won't be able to understand the existence of potential if I just describe it with words. Come to Tianhuang region when you have time. I will summon Yuan Ri and let you feel the changes of potential. Alright, I'll go to Heaven Wasteland. Xing Hui said. Along with seeing his own nature clearly and breaking through the shackles of morality, his soul had already undergone a leap. Not only had the level of his spirit obtained a great improvement, even the perfection level of his sword intent had risen along with it. Thus, comprehending sword force was the best method for him to increase his strength. Well, we'll also make preparations here. After we've dealt with the matters here in 3 to 5 days, we'll help you feel the changes of potential. Master Tsongjin said. Master Tsongjin opened his mouth and was about to say something, but Master Tsongjin secretly shook his head at him. A moment later, Tsing Hui left. After he left, Master Tsongjin asked in confusion, Master Tsongjin, why did you stop me just now? What did you say? That we're willing to use all our resources on him? Including the limitless Tao fruit? That's right. I believe that with Pak Hui's talent, if he swallows the infinite Tao fruit, he will definitely be able to understand the laws and step into the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth realm. When he reaches the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth realm, the power of his great divine ability will be unimaginably powerful. At that time, with you facing the opponent's domain power head-on, his battle strength will not be inferior to an invincible divine realm giant. I also believe that, but... Master Tsongjin looked at Tsing Hui's departing figure. The infinite Tao fruit is the most precious resource in Tianhuang region. If we really give it to him so easily, what will he think? And what will the others in Tianhuang region think? The others in Tianhuang region. Master Tsongjin frowned. The existence of the infinite Tao fruit was not known to the few of them. Many masters and core members knew about the existence of the infinite Tao fruit. For example, Master Three Wonders of the Six Sacred Sects had joined Tianhuang region because he was indebted to Master Tsongjin, but also because of the infinite Tao fruit. If he had the infinite Tao fruit, he would certainly be able to completely understand the laws that he was compatible with. At that time, he only needed to prepare enough innate charm to condense the domain origin in one go and step into the divine realm. The Tao fruit of infinity is different from other things. White ruins. He needs to make some contributions before I can bestow the fruit upon him and shut the mouths of others. Otherwise, given the current state of the Celestial Vault, the hearts of the people in the Celestial Vault would truly fall apart if we, the rulers of the Celestial Vault, continue to act willfully. When that happens, even if the Celestial Vault could rely on white ruins to regain a foothold in the Celestial Barrens, who knows if it would still be the same Celestial Vault as before? Master Tsongjin fell silent when he heard Master Tsongjin's words. One should not meddle in politics if one was not in position. As the true leader of Tianhuang region, Master Tsongjin had to consider more comprehensively than him. I understand. When he comes to Tianhuang region, I will assign him some tasks according to his true strength and let him make contributions. I will have to trouble you with this matter. Master Tsongjin's gaze fell on the chessboard in front of him. This chessboard focuses on deduction, and in terms of deduction, the most proficient person in this Tao in the entire divine wilderness is the leakless Tao Master, followed by the divine prophet and the head of the pavilion of heavenly secrets. Why don't we just ask the divine prophet and the head of the pavilion of heavenly secrets to help? No matter what, the two of them are still part of our divine wilderness world. Even if they don't agree with our ideals. Divine wilderness? I have never forgotten why my Tsong family's ancestor died. I will work with anyone, but not with the divine wilderness. Master Tsongjin saw that Master Tsongjin's attitude was firm, and in the end he could not say anything. Everyone has their own unique point of view and stand on everything. Just like the Chaos Organization Divine Wilderness, it was difficult to survive under the oppression of the Immortal Emperor. If they did not join forces with the Heavenly Way and the Immortal Emperor, when the Immortal Emperor defeated the Heavenly Way and the Immortal Emperor, what awaited them was inevitably the fate of annexation. In the end, although they caused the collapse of the Immortal Emperor, after the final battle that shattered the Divine Wilderness, no one in the Divine Wilderness retreated to resist the further destruction of the Heavenly Way and the Immortal Emperor. Some people saw him as a savior and tried to curry favor with him. Some people saw him as the biggest traitor of the Divine Wilderness world and hated him to the core. The right and wrong in this matter was not something that they could explain clearly at the moment. After leaving the mountain where Master Tsongjin was located, Tsing Hui did not immediately explain the matter of the Hidden Sword sect. Instead, he found Yulan and obtained the spiritual imprint of the traitor from her. After obtaining the spiritual imprint, Tsing Hui, who wanted to obtain the token of the world of battle and the 110-year-old Tao item as soon as possible, did not waste any time. He directly sensed the location of the traitor, the flying fish sword saint, and then used the incarnation technique. As the incarnation technique was used, Xing Hui immediately felt a resonating spiritual fluctuation tens of millions of kilometers away. Then his consciousness shuttled, crossing thousands of mountains and rivers in an instant, and directly descended into the void where the traitor, the flying fish sword saint, was. However, what surprised him was that the flying fish sword saint was currently fleeing. He was being chased by two almighties who had also derived divine powers. Before Xing Hui could completely condense the incarnation, the flying fish sword saint had already flown away on his sword and directly disappeared. This. How do I trade? Xing Hui looked at the flying fish sword saint disappearing into the horizon and felt somewhat helpless. He had no choice but to contact Yulan in the Chaos Temple. With the change of the surrounding space, he suddenly appeared in Yulan's courtyard. At this time, Yulan was discussing something with a somewhat familiar person. Seeing Xing Hui's arrival, she first nodded to him and motioned for him to wait for a moment, and then turned to the man in front of her and said, "Then it's settled. When will you deliver the 100 giant magnetic arrows?" "Give me 10 days. I'll definitely deliver it within 10 days. My magnetic giant arrows are terrifying killing weapons that can even kill almighties. Don't worry. Once you're equipped with these magnetic giant arrows, you'll definitely fall in love with them. You have to be able to shoot people first." Yulan said somewhat helplessly, "When you improve the propulsion system of these giant magnetic arrows, we will talk about it." "Don't worry." Speaking of this, the man said regretfully, "Unfortunately, I don't have enough Taoist rhyme recently, so I can no longer purchase the token of the world of battle and launch the war of chaos to go to that world. Otherwise, I really want to learn the propulsion system of that world. With the propulsion system, this alchemy weapon of mine will definitely become the most powerful existence in the entire divine wilderness. Even the Scarlet Sun demon god, who has been the talk of the town during this period of time, cannot be compared to it. The battlefield of the War of Chaos is too random. The possibility of going to the same world at the same time is too low. Even if it is a world with the same background, the probability is less than 1 in 10. Yulan said regretfully. Xing Hui, who was curious about the cultivation method of the late stage of the 9 transformations of the real dragon, heard this and did not care about being rude. He interrupted and asked, "Senior Sister Yun, according to what you said, is it really possible to go to the same world of the War of Chaos?" Chapter 592. Yulan and the somewhat familiar-looking man shifted their gazes towards Qing Su at the same time when they heard Qing Su's words. Of course. Before Yulan could reply, the man had already replied with certainty. Although it is impossible for the battlefield scene to be the same, the general background is quite consistent. Otherwise, in addition to the mainstream system in our world, how could there be other systems similar to alchemy, array formation, and so on? These systems were all learned from other worlds through the scenes of the War of Chaos. By Su, let me introduce you. This is the most famous master alchemist in our Sky Dome, Sir Jean Lien. Sir Jean Lien has devoted his entire life to alchemy, and he has advocated for modifying the current alchemy system in Sky Dome many times. Most famously, he once relied on a modified Golden Core Realm alchemy puppet to defeat a battle formation formed by 20 Golden Core Realm experts. In addition, he recently invented the giant magnetite arrow, which is one of the most impressive strategic resources in Sky Dome. It's so powerful that it can threaten even the pinnacle of alchemy. Jean Lien. When Xing Hui heard this, he finally understood why he felt that he was somewhat familiar. Back then, he had seen this person in the book creation hall. In addition to the giant magnetic arrow, I have also recently modified the giant profound heavy arrow. This kind of arrow can form a special domain force field, which may not be able to bind those experts who have stepped into the transcendent realm and can erupt with all their strength, but the main point is that it has a large range. This kind of force field can reach up to 1,000 kilometers, which means that once the force field is formed, cultivators below the transcendent realm will have no power to resist. Even if a cultivator in the transcendent realm can break free from the force field, After a few times, his true essence will be consumed by a large amount. Pak Hui, are you interested in buying a few sets? Jin Lian quickly turned his gaze to Tsing Hui and promoted his alchemy products. I don't need it for the time being. I wonder what method I should use to go to those scenes. Are you interested in some of the systems in those battlefield worlds? Which battlefield world? We can still communicate. By the way, have you ever entered the battlefield world of the alchemy system? If you can provide valuable alchemy information, I'm willing to buy it at a high price. Jin Lian was very interested. All right, Jin Lian, let's talk about this later. As for the White Ruins, although the cultivation system in the battlefield world is extraordinary, due to time constraints and the restrictions placed on our cultivation by the War of Chaos, it's very difficult for us to come into contact with things that are too advanced. Even if we did learn them, there wouldn't be much meaning to it. Take the alchemy system for example. The most powerful alchemy product at present is actually the Two-Realm Boat, while the most powerful product in combat is the Scarlet Sun Demon God of the Scarlet Sun Cult. It's said that the Scarlet Sun Cult had entered the world of alchemy 3 times back then and had stolen and perfected the alchemy method from that world, which was how they created the Scarlet Sun Demon God. Even so, you've seen the battle strength of the Scarlet Sun Demon God. Let alone an invincible Saint Realm powerhouse, even a true lawful embodiment of heaven and earth expert would be able to defeat it. I understand. I was just asking out of curiosity. Tsing Hui nodded after hearing Yolan's words. The most powerful alchemy product was the Red Sun Devil, while the most powerful body refining expert was only equivalent to the 12th level of the Divine Dragon Realm. Compared to the cultivation system of this world, it was indeed inferior. As for whether you really want to return to a battlefield world with a similar background, it will depend on your luck. There are quite a lot of alchemy battlefield worlds. Secondly, there is a system that gathers faith to become a god. However, although this system is powerful, it is very restrictive. It is said that there was once an invincible divine realm giant who tried to cultivate this system. In the end, he was directly converted into an existence similar to a believer by this system. He wantonly established a religion in the divine wilderness, causing a civil war in the divine wilderness that almost split the divine wilderness. Even if the divine wilderness was destroyed, the divine wilderness was destroyed. In addition, there are various other systems, such as the immortal Tao, formation, alchemy, spirit refinement, and so on. Unfortunately, all of these systems have serious limitations. Moreover, the lower the cultivation limit of a world, the lower the probability of it appearing. Yulan turned her gaze to Tsing Hui. Which world do you want to go to? What is the cultivation limit of that world? It is a world that is good at refining the body. The cultivation limit should be the peak of the Saint Realm. The peak of the Saint Realm. It is not powerful, but it is not weak either. If you encounter it again, I'm afraid you will have to spend a lot of tokens of the world of battle. The loss outweighs the gain. Qing Su nodded when he heard that. In fact, since our Heaven Wasteland world was destroyed, many people have focused their energy on the worlds where the tokens of the world of battle are located, hoping to obtain resources to continue their cultivation in the battlefield worlds derived from the tokens of the world of battle. However, according to thousands of experiments, the strongest person in any battlefield world is only in the Saint Realm. The resources that are very precious to the experts of the Saint Realm are also extremely precious in those worlds. It is extremely difficult to obtain them. In addition, it takes several attempts to go to such a high-level world. Over time, no one would do such a strenuous and unrewarding thing. Instead of using so many Tao auras to buy the tokens of the world of battle, it is better to buy some suitable resources in the Chaos Treasure Pavilion. Speaking of this, Yulan paused slightly and continued, of course, there are also many people who have obtained good things in these battlefield worlds and made rapid progress. Take Jin Lian for example. He used the techniques he learned in that alchemy world to cast giant magnetic arrows and giant mysterious heavy arrows, both of which are very popular. Over the years, he has obtained at least thousands of Tao auras by relying on these alchemy items. His wealth is so great that we are jealous. You only see how many Dao auras I have gained through alchemy, but you don't see how many tokens of the world of battle I have consumed in order to go to that alchemy world again to learn alchemy techniques. Jean Lien said with some dissatisfaction. Since you know that these are evil methods, why don't you spend your Dao aura on the right path, derive divine sense early, and step into the realm of powerful people? I can't help it. This is my hobby. Jean Lien shrugged his shoulders. Yulan shook her head and didn't want to force it. She could only turn to Tsing Hui and said, "You didn't come here specifically to inquire about this information, right?" "No, I have already arrived at the Flying Fish Sword Saint's area. However, when I arrived, he was being hunted down. In the blink of an eye, he had already disappeared into the horizon. If you have his contact information, I would like to ask if you want to change the transaction location and time?" Being hunted down? Yolan's expression changed. Didn't he say that he could get rid of the people from the Black Flame sect? Black Flame sect? Tsing Hui frowned. If he remembered correctly, Hidden Sword Saint had gone to find a powerful person from the Black Flame sect to seek revenge. This is troublesome. The Flying Fish Sword Saint is the supreme elder of the White Rainbow Sword sect. The White Rainbow Sword sect and our Sky Dome sect have quite a lot of cooperation. Not long ago, when esteemed Zhu Zhao was in danger, it was thanks to Bai Heng of the White Rainbow Sword sect that we, Sky Dome sect, owe the White Rainbow Sword sect a favor. Now that the Flying Fish Sword Saint's life is in danger, since we know about it, we can't turn a blind eye to it. A favor must be reciprocated. I will go find Hidden Sword Saint and ask him to dispatch some powerful people nearby to help. There's no need. After hearing Yolan's words, Tsing Hui considered that Hidden Sword Saint had gone to the Black Flame sect and there seemed to be no news from him. He immediately said, "Let me do it. I have already upgraded my personal space to level 10. Now that my incarnation is in that area, I can just turn my body over." Yulan glanced at Qing Su hesitantly. After a while of hesitation, she still nodded, "All right then. However, although you've killed Saint Exalt Xianbing before, her battle experience and methods clearly can't compare to those veteran great figures. As a result, you have to be careful when you face the great figures of the Black Flame sect. You have to prioritize your own safety over everything. Don't worry. I will contact the Flying Fish Sword Saint and ask him to meet up with you." "Okay." Tsing Hui nodded. Without hesitation, he left the Sky Dome realm. Yulan, who was worried about the Flying Fish Sword Saint's safety, did not notice that using the incarnation technique might have weakened him. Instead, she directly sent a message to the Flying Fish Sword Saint. In the void, Tsing Hui quickly completed the transformation between his incarnation and his body. At the same time, he activated the backtrack technique and restored his condition to its peak. After determining the direction that the Flying Fish Sword Saint had flown in, Tsing Hui directly flew on his sword and chased after the Flying Fish Sword Saint. My flying speed seems to be able to overlap with the speed of a 12th order flying sword. After flying for a while, Tsing Hui's heart skipped a beat. In the next moment, an even more violent sound barrier was torn apart by him. In the next moment, his speed increased again. In an instant, he went from less than 20,000 kilometers per hour to 40,000 kilometers per hour. It had more than doubled. It was almost 40 times the speed of sound. This speed, Tsing Hui's eyes shone brightly. Apart from those invincible Saint Realm experts who had top-notch flying swords, who else could match his speed? Relying on this speed, in less than a minute, the Flying Fish Sword Saint and the two powerful people chasing after him appeared in Tsing Hui's field of vision. Seeing Tsing Hui coming at full speed and bringing with him a terrifying sonic boom, the Flying Fish Sword Saint's eyes widened. "Sky Pak Hui." Almost at the same time that he called out Tsing Hui's name, Tsing Hui had already whizzed past him with the terrifying sonic boom and air pressure. The sweeping air current caused the Flying Fish Sword Saint's body to tremble, and he was almost blown away. When Tsing Hui and the other two powerful people clashed, a visible shockwave swept out brazenly, and a deafening roar of thunder suddenly sounded. The first powerful person to bear the brunt of the shockwave had just managed to condense a divine ability, but he was actually blown away by Tsing Hui's air pressure with the force of Mount Tai. While in the void, he spat out blood. The flying fish sword saint, who had barely managed to stabilize himself, widened his eyes at this scene. Relying on the shockwave of air pressure from his flying speed, he can already form an attack not inferior to a divine ability? Where did this monster come from? Chapter 593. Who are you? How dare you attack an elder of the Black Flame sect? Looking at the Almighty who was sent flying by the air pressure, the remaining Almighty shouted angrily. At the same time, a blue pearl floated above him. A chilling aura emanated from the pearl. As he made a gesture, a chilling light shot towards Tsing Hui with a chilling aura. Along the way, faint blue traces appeared as though the void was frozen. Be careful. This is the mysterious underworld chilling light. Once it hits you, not only will it hurt your body and your true origin energy, it will also freeze your divine soul. Regardless of whether you block it or not, the effect will not change. Behind Tsing Hui, the flying fish sword saint's warning could be heard. Hit! Ching Su gazed at the piercingly cold light that shot out from the azure pearl, and he was completely composed. Even though he did not use any divine powers, but his vision, reflexes, and other aspects had improved, allowing him to clearly see the trajectory of the chilling light. Even though its speed was extremely fast and its power was equally shocking, when all of its attack trajectories were exposed to Tsing Hui, it was useless even if it had the characteristic of causing damage upon hitting. Swoosh! With a sway of his body, Tsing Hui had easily dodged the mysterious underworld chilling light. Then, the sky splitter under his feet exploded with sword speed. Once again, it rolled up a strong air pressure and charged towards the Almighty from the Black Flame sect. As his body moved, the deep scarlet sword in his hand was already out of its sheath. He did not use any powerful sword principle, nor did he use any sure-kill sword moves. He simply stabbed with his sword. With the addition of his terrifying speed, it was already an attack that was not inferior to a divine powers. It was as fast as lightning as it slashed towards the Almighty. Just as that powerful existence reacted and let the azure pearl turn into a blue radiance and descend, protecting his body, the blazing sword light of the scarlet abyss sword had already exploded in front of this layer of blue flowing light. The terrifying heat swept through the air, causing a suffocating impact to spread out wildly. Even though that powerful existence had the azure pearl to block it, he still felt the surging heat wave, as if his body was going to be cooked alive. So fast, the expression of the Black Flame sect's Almighty was stern. As he used the azure pearl to block the sword, he was about to retreat and widen the distance between the two of them. However, the blazing heat suddenly exploded for the second time. In an instant, the azure flowing light, which was already in a precarious situation, was shattered into pieces. The blazing and violent air waves swept up his body. Even though he had the protection of his true origin, he could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Just as he spat out a mouthful of blood and before he could figure out how his azure pearl had been broken, in the next moment, the sword light descended. 3 strikes. Tsing Hui had not slashed out once, but 3 times. By the time the Black Flame sect's Almighty being could only tell that Tsing Hui had only slashed out once, he had already slashed out 3 times. The first slash had weakened the protective light around the azure pearl, the second slash had destroyed the protective light around the pearl, and the third slash had directly slashed the Almighty's body. How can this be? As the Almighty's eyes widened in shock, the blazing sword light of the deep scarlet sword tore through the defensive light of the level 10 armor that had erupted from his body. It ruthlessly slashed his body. The blazing sword chi immediately blasted out of his body, causing him to feel as if his internal organs were on fire. The intense pain almost caused him to cry out in pain. At this moment, the Almighty who had been sent flying by Tsing Hui's air pressure finally reacted. Seeing that his comrade was in danger, he roared loudly. The shadow of a vermilion bird appeared above his head, and a blazing heat wave suddenly exploded. Take my sword! Although the flying fish sword saint who had fled earlier was shocked by Tsing Hui's tyrannical strength, he would not let go of this opportunity to take advantage of the situation. The divine weapon in his hand whistled and shot out like a flying sword. However, when it was about to slash the Almighty, the flying sword turned into a huge sword aura that was hundreds of meters long. It slashed down from the sky and covered the earth. The dazzling sword light almost completely shattered the vermilion bird shadow that the Almighty had conjured. Damn it. Just as this Almighty was being held back by the flying fish sword saint, Sing Hui's fourth sword had already slashed down. This sword was no longer a sword that harmed the Almighty's body. Instead, it was a sword that went straight to the Almighty's soul. Under this sword, this Almighty who had been injured by Tsing Hui's sword chi and could no longer retaliate did not even have the chance to breathe. His soul was severely shaken, and in addition to Tsing Hui's attack from the side, he had already been knocked unconscious and captured alive. After capturing this Almighty from the Black Flame sect, Tsing Hui's gaze turned and landed on another Almighty. That Almighty was so frightened that his soul almost left his body. He did not dare to have the slightest thought of fighting with Tsing Hui. After escaping from the flying fish sword saint's attack range, a pair of wings made of pure flames suddenly appeared on his back. He quickly rushed in the direction of the Black Flame sect's branch. Do you think you can leave? Since you've come, then stay obediently. Tsing Hui let out a low growl. Every Almighty represented a few hundred Taoist rhymes. How could he let them go so easily? Accompanied by the whistling of the sky splitter under his feet, Tsing Hui's speed had even surpassed the flying fish sword saint who was fighting with that Almighty. Before he could stop this escaping Almighty from the Black Flame sect, Tsing Hui had already swept up a violent airwave and caught up to him. Before he even made his move, that terrifying pressure had already caused this Almighty from the Black Flame sect to suffocate. By the time he turned around with a furious roar and launched a fierce counterattack, Tsing Hui's Scarlet Abyss sword had already collided with the vermilion bird's illusory image that he had summoned. When the two collided, sparks flew everywhere. This Almighty from the Black Flame sect took advantage of the shockwave formed by the explosion to increase the distance between them. However, he did not expect Tsing Hui's second sword to follow closely behind. He had no choice but to turn around and defend himself with great difficulty. Bang! A shockwave visible to the naked eye exploded when the Scarlet Abyss sword and the vermilion bird's illusory image collided. The terrifying shockwave and blazing heat wave blasted onto this Almighty's body, causing him to vomit blood once again. He could not even stabilize his body and fell straight to the ground. Damn it! This Almighty let out a furious roar and the aura of the divine art burst out. His aura suddenly increased by a notch. However, it was useless. The Scarlet Abyss sword's sword radiance had already slashed down at a speed that defied common sense. It was so fast that it did not give the Almighty any chance to catch his breath. Tsing Hui did not use any divine art or sword art. He only used the most ordinary and basic slash. When these ordinary slashes slashed down at a speed that was 2 or even 3 times faster than what an ordinary person could comprehend, the resulting power was enough to completely overturn everyone's understanding of the realm. The Black Flame sect's Almighty who had activated the divine art had a much more tyrannical true origin fluctuation than Tsing Hui's. Due to the fact that he had perfect control over his true chi, he was able to dissolve Tsing Hui's slashes every time. However, he could not withstand the speed of Tsing Hui's slashes. It was unreasonably fast. It was unbelievably tyrannical. It was suffocatingly fast. Under such unreasonably fast slashes, this Black Flame sect's Almighty who had activated the divine art could only withstand Tsing Hui's sword for a moment longer. That was all. Due to a moment of carelessness, the Scarlet Abyss sword's sword radiance finally tore apart this Almighty's defense completely. The dazzling torrent tore the vermilion bird's illusory image apart and bombarded the body of this Black Flame sect's Almighty. The blazing sword chi instantly pierced a dozen holes in his body. The sword chi that entered his body even shattered all the tendons and veins in his body. No! Before he could continue to fight desperately, Tsing Hui's Scarlet Abyss sword's body had already trembled violently and violently slammed into this Almighty's head. The vibrating force that was mixed with the soul-shaking sword essence bombarded him, causing this Almighty's indignant and furious screams to stop abruptly. He fainted. Phew. Xing Hui panted slightly. Capturing him alive and killing him are indeed different. If it was purely killing him, I would have been able to do it after suppressing him. However, to knock him unconscious and capture him alive, the energy required is several times more than capturing him alive. He did not know how many times he had slashed out in one breath just now. He had directly defeated this black flame sex almighty who had activated the divine art. This had placed a heavy burden on his body. After the battle ended, he actually felt a faint soreness in his body. The passive enhancement of chasing light has given me a clear advantage against ordinary almighties. If I were to ignite my sword essence and activate chasing light, Xing Hui made a rough estimation, unless that almighty had made preparations beforehand and set up an area of effect battle formation or possessed a domain-type treasure like the Morning Heaven realm, they would not even have the chance to retaliate, let alone fight him. Before they could even react, he would have killed them with a single slash of his sword. The only problem was the burden on his body. Not long ago, he had tried out the remarkable power of chasing light. As he had not fought with anyone, he had only been slightly aware of the burden this remarkable power placed on his body. Now that he was fighting with these two almighties, he realized that if he really used chasing light, the burden on his body would definitely be far beyond his imagination. The biggest disadvantage of lawful embodiment of heaven and earth experts is that they need time to enter the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth state. Once I activate chasing light, they won't have the chance to do so. In other words, I can deal with lawful embodiment of heaven and earth experts in the same way that divine realm experts use their domain-type powers to interfere with lawful embodiment of heaven and earth. I can destroy their lawful embodiment of heaven and earth. It's a pity that the effect of chasing light will be greatly reduced when faced with a true divine realm expert. After all, the first level of the divine realm is the domain type. Xing Hui summed up the pros and cons in his mind. However, although the domain-type powers of divine realm experts could somewhat restrain his chasing light, he would only know the extent of it after the battle. The increase in combat strength brought about by the enhancement of vision and nervous reactions seemed to be much higher than he had imagined. You captured both of them alive? At this moment, the rescued flying fish sword saint seemed to have just recovered from Xing Hui's lightning-fast attack. Thinking of the unimaginable and illogical speed in which Xing Hui had defeated these two almighties, the flying fish sword saint could not help but shudder. That was your remarkable power? That's right. Xing Hui nodded. Now, let's find a place to complete the transaction. After that, I'll wake the two of them up. I have some things to ask them. Okay. The flying fish sword saint did not dare to refute and agreed. He looked at Xing Hui with a faint trace of reverence in his eyes. Just now, he had been chased by these two almighties to the point of no escape. Now, these two almighties had been captured alive by Xing Hui alone. In other words, if Xing Hui wanted to kill him, or even capture him alive, it would be as easy as flipping his hand. In front of such a terrifying existence that could dictate his life and death, he naturally had to show enough humility. Chapter 594. Mr. Pak Hui, this is the token of the realm of battle and the vessel of truth that you need. The flying fish sword saint handed the token of the realm of battle and the vessel of truth to Xing Hui on a hill less than 100 kilometers away from the battlefield. Xing Hui sensed the notification from the Chaos Divine Palace and was surprised. There are more vessel of truth than what we said. If it weren't for Mr. Pak Hui's help, I would have most likely fallen into the hands of those two. My life would have been in danger then. Mr. Pak Hui saved my life, so I'll take the extra vessel of truth as a gift to Mr. Pak Hui. The flying fish sword saint said with a hint of guilt. These vessel of truth aren't enough to express my apology, but I'm really sorry, I only have so many vessel of truth on me. You're too polite, flying fish sword saint. In fact, based on the relationship between our two sects, it's only right for me to help you. Qing Su said. However, he still accepted the flying fish sword saint's treasure of 140 charms of ways in the end. He needed far too many of them. Currently, he planned to accumulate 1,000 Taoist rhymes in the Fortune Divine Jade. He wanted to see what would happen when he activated the Fortune Divine Jade with the Taoist rhymes and comprehended the Supreme Immortal Technique. In order for the Fortune Divine Jade to accumulate 1,000 Taoist rhymes, he had to prepare at least 1,000 Taoist rhymes as backup. Otherwise, the expenses of the Chaos Treasure Pavilion would definitely drag him to death. After Tsing Hui gave the Chaos Incantation to the Flying Fish Sword Saint, he was about to leave. However, the Flying Fish Sword Saint invited him. Mr. Pak Hui, in fact, another 10,000 kilometers north from here is the Dragon Sword Sect, one of the subordinate forces of our Rainbow Sword Sect. The Dragon Sword Sect was established by the grandson of a great elder of our Rainbow Sword Sect. It also has almighty figures and is quite powerful locally. Could Mr. Pak Hui go to the Dragon Sword Sect to rest and let me entertain Mr. Pak Hui to show my gratitude? There's no need to trouble yourself. I'll interrogate the two almighty figures of the Black Flame Sect first. Tsing Hui casually asked, how did the people of your Rainbow Sword Sect get into a conflict with the people of the Black Flame Sect? I was invited by a senior martial brother to help an old friend of his. I didn't expect to not only fail to save him, but also almost lose my life. A wry smile appeared on the Flying Fish Sword Saint's face as he continued, I still don't know what's going on with the two of them. The only reason I'm heading to the Dragon Sword Sect is because I've invited the sect leader of the Dragon Sword Sect to the Chaos Temple. If the two of us go together, we'll be able to help my senior martial brother. Flying Fish Sword Saint is really loyal, Tsing Hui said. Considering Sword Saint Bai Heng's rescue of Venerable Tian Qiong Zhu Zhao, he added, if Flying Fish Sword Saint can wait for me for a moment, I'm willing to go with you and help you and your senior martial brother. The Flying Fish Sword Saint was overjoyed when he heard this. That's great. If Mr. Pak Hui is willing to help, my senior martial brother and his old friend's crisis will be resolved easily. After saying this, he immediately said, I can't contact my senior martial brother at the moment. It can be seen that he's in a dangerous situation. While we wait for news, we'll mobilize the power of the Dragon Sword Sect and have them investigate my senior martial brother's whereabouts. We'll go to the Dragon Sword Sect first and meet up with the sect master of the Dragon Sword Sect, Sword Saint Long Shao. Tsing Hui nodded. The Heavenly Tao referred to Saint Realm experts as Tao Sovereigns, Peak Almighties as Tao Masters, and Ordinary Almighties as True Monarchs. However, the Rainbow Sword Sect didn't have such a detailed division. They only referred to Almighties and Peak Almighties as Sword Saints, and Almighties in the Saint Realm as Sword Masters. Almost every sect had these honorific titles. For example, in the Divine Wilderness, the invincible powerhouses at the Divine Realm were called Divine Supremacies, while mighty figures were called Godly Monarchs. In the Eternal Realm, the invincible powerhouses at the Divine Realm were called Empyrean Lords, while pinnacle mighty figures were called Sovereigns. Ordinary mighty figures were called Kings, and so on. To Tsing Hui, an incense stick's worth of time was enough to cross tens of thousands of kilometers. However, the Flying Fish Sword Saint didn't have a 12th order flying sword, and his flying speed wasn't outstanding either. As a result, he could only reach 1/6 of Tsing Hui's speed at full speed. By the time the two arrived at the Dragon Sword Sect, more than an hour had passed. At the entrance of the Dragon Sword Sect, the sect master of the Dragon Sword Sect, Sword Saint Long Shao, was already waiting there. Seeing the Flying Fish Sword Saint arrive, he immediately went up to greet him. Flying Fish Sword Saint. Thank you for waiting so long, Sword Saint Long Shao. Let me introduce you. This is Pak Hui from Heaven's Dome. The Flying Fish Sword Saint immediately introduced Tsing Hui. Sword Saint Long Shao had clearly received the Flying Fish Sword Saint's message from the Primal Chaos Temple, and he treated Tsing Hui with great respect. Thank you for your help, Pak Hui. My Rainbow Sword Sect will forever remember your kindness to Pak Hui. Heaven's Dome is currently on good terms with the Rainbow Sword Sect, and we're even discussing an alliance. It's only right for us to help each other. Tsing Hui said with a smile. The Flying Fish Sword Saint didn't wait for Tsing Hui and Sword Saint Long Shao to continue exchanging pleasantries. He impatiently asked, Sword Saint Long Shao, Have you found anything? Has Senior Brother contacted you or asked for help from the sect? I didn't receive the Floating Cloud Sword Saint's request for help. Sword Saint Long Zhao's expression was solemn. Almost 2 hours have passed, and the Floating Cloud Sword Saint didn't send any message. I'm afraid he's in danger. Is his sword heart still there? I went to the sect and asked. His sword heart is still there. As long as his sword heart is still there, it means that he's not dead yet. However, he didn't contact us. There are only 2 possibilities for this situation. One, he's severely injured and unconscious, and can't contact the outside world. The other, Sword Saint Long Zhao didn't continue, but the Flying Fish Sword Saint had already guessed it. Captured alive. The Floating Cloud Sword Saint was captured alive, just like how Tsinghui captured the 2 Almighties from the Black Flame sect. Those people wanted to squeeze the Floating Cloud Sword Saint's primal chaos level, Tao-carrying item, and other items out of him. They cut off his communication with the Primal Chaos Temple and were currently torturing him. Who are the people chasing after the Floating Cloud Sword Saint? Let's judge based on those people and see the probability of the Floating Cloud Sword Saint being captured alive. Then, we'll think of a way. I don't know about this either. The Flying Fish Sword Saint frowned and said, in fact, not long ago, Senior Brother Floating Cloud's good friend, Hidden Sword, suddenly came to drink with Senior Brother Floating Cloud. During the conversation, Senior Brother Floating Cloud vaguely felt that something was wrong with Hidden Sword, as if he was leaving his last words. Therefore, after Hidden Sword left, he secretly followed him. Not long after, he contacted me and asked me to go and rescue him. However, before I arrived at the Black Flame Sect's territory, I saw that Senior Brother Floating Cloud was being chased by more than 10 Almighties and an avatar of Heaven and Earth elite. In the fierce battle, Senior Brother Floating Cloud and I fought and ran for 20,000 kilometers. However, not long after, we completely lost each other. Wait. Before the Flying Fish Sword Saint could finish, Tsinghui seemed to have heard something. He suddenly asked, Flying Fish Sword Saint, you just mentioned a person named Hidden Sword? Could it be the Hidden Sword Continent's Venerable Hidden Sword? It is indeed the Hidden Sword Continent's Venerable Hidden Sword. The Flying Fish Sword Saint nodded. The Hidden Sword Venerable, my Senior Brother Floating Cloud Sword Saint, Master Qixin of the Black Flame Sect, and Fairy Lan Yin. Back then, they went on adventures together and formed a strong friendship. Among them, the Hidden Sword Venerable and Fairy Lan Yin were said to be in love and almost married. However, due to a fight over an ancient cave, the Master Qixin secretly killed Fairy Lan Yin in order to monopolize the cave. Therefore, the Hidden Sword Venerable has always wanted to kill the Master Qixin. The Hidden Sword Venerable. Tsinghui heard that the investigation of the Hidden Sword Venerable from the Sky Dome continent was clear. The Hidden Sword Venerable did indeed die at the hands of a Master Qixin of the Black Flame sect. Therefore, he took the opportunity to cultivate the ultimate sword Dao to seek revenge from the Master Qixin of the Black Flame sect. However, wasn't the Master Qixin of the Almighties only an ordinary Almighty? The Hidden Sword Venerable's ability might be inferior to a real divine being. However, with the power of the ultimate sword Dao, it would not be difficult for him to kill an ordinary Almighty. How could he? Do you know the Hidden Sword Venerable, Pak Hui? Sword Saint Long Zhao asked. The Hidden Sword Venerable has done me a great favor. I'm currently the Supreme Elder of the Hidden Sword Sect. Tsinghui answered seriously. How is the Hidden Sword Venerable now? Sword Saint Long Zhao and the Flying Fish Sword Saint looked at each other. They did not expect things to be so coincidental. Tsinghui actually knew the Hidden Sword Venerable. After hearing Tsinghui's words, the Flying Fish Sword Saint hesitated for a while and said, I don't know about this. I only heard from my senior brother Floating Cloud that the Hidden Sword Venerable waited outside for a few months. However, the Master Qixin did not come out. In the end, he killed his way into the Black Flame sect. My senior brother Floating Cloud went to help him, but he was in danger. When I went to help him, I only saw senior brother Floating Cloud. I did not see the Hidden Sword Venerable. Is he dead or alive? Tsinghui's face turned cold. He did not understand why the hidden sword venerable did not simply wait outside the Black Flame sect and wait for the Master Qixin to leave the sect. Instead, he chose to kill his way into the Black Flame sect. It should be known that the Black Flame sect was one of the 6 famous sects in the Heaven Wasteland world. It was said that there were 3 invincible figures of the divine realm in the sect. As for the existence of the powerful figures, there were hundreds of them. Not to mention that the hidden sword venerable was only at the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth level. Even if an invincible figure of the divine realm entered the Black Flame sect, he would definitely die. I can more or less guess why the hidden sword venerable chose to kill his way into the Black Flame sect. Sword Saint Long Shao, who was standing at the side, suddenly said, "From what I know, Master Qi Xn is an extremely low-key person in Black Flame sect. He lives in seclusion. The last time he left Black Flame sect, it should be 100 years ago. In other words, he hasn't left Black Flame sect for 100 years. 100 years? The Flying Fish Sword Saint was stunned. A person could not leave the Black Flame sect for 100 years? Although the lifespan of powerful figures was usually 1 or 2,000 years, and those who took good care of themselves could live for 3,000 years, not leaving the sect for 100 years was still a torture. It was like a mortal who did not leave the house for 3 years. The Master Qixin is trying to outlast the hidden sword venerable. After hearing what Sword Saint Long Shao said, Xing Hui immediately understood the real reason why the hidden sword venerable had killed his way into the Black Flame sect. For a moment, he was speechless. However, regardless of whether the hidden sword venerable was right or wrong, just based on the kindness that he had shown to Xing Hui, he had to make a choice. How is the hidden sword venerable now? And the Master Qixin, is he dead? Sword Saint Long Shao and the Flying Fish Sword Saint shook their heads at the same time. We don't know, but I believe that the 2 people you captured alive would know something. Qingfen had to admit that he felt a little depressed after seeing the incident between Zhao Yong and Huang Shufan. Regardless of whether the news on the internet is true or not, Qingfen hoped that justice would be served and the law would protect the bottom line of human morality. Chapter 595. In the Dragon Sword Sect's interrogation room, one of the 2 almighties of the Black Flame sect slowly woke up. Huh! When this almighty saw the 3 figures in front of him, his expression changed slightly. Long Shao, Flying Fish, is your Rainbow Sword sect trying to start an all-out war with our Black Flame sect? Don't forget that the Divine Dao sect is keeping a close eye on your White Rainbow Sword sect. If you offend our Black Flame sect again, be careful that our Black Flame sect will join forces with the Divine Dao sect. At that time, what awaits your White Rainbow Sword sect will surely be annihilation. I recognize you. You're Dharma King Mi Shui of the Black Flame sect. The Black Flame sect won't go to war with the Rainbow Sword sect. What you say doesn't count. What we say also doesn't count. Now, we have something to ask you. You'd better answer honestly. Otherwise, when we use some torture methods, it'll be too late for you to regret. Sword Saint Xiaolong said coldly. While the White Rainbow Sword sect and the Black Flame sect were comparable in terms of power, and both had 3 divine stage cultivators, the 3 divine stage cultivators of the Black Flame sect were the most ordinary of them all. Their level was comparable to the Qingwei Holy Man and the Lihan Holy Man without the Lihan Heaven Realm. While the other 2 sword masters of the White Rainbow Sword sect were also at this level, Sword Master Bai Heng was above this level. Perhaps he had not reached the level of the 10 great masters, but he was not far from it. Shakyamuni glanced at Sword Saint Long Shao, Xing Hui, Flying Fish Sword Saint, and the others. A while later, he let out a long sigh and asked, "What do you want to ask?" Hidden Sword Venerable and Floating Cloud Sword Saint. Venerable Hidden Sword, Dharma King Mi Shui shook his head. Songjian overestimated himself. He sneaked into Black Flame sect and tried to kill Dharma King of Black Flame sect. Of course, the real god of Black Flame sect was furious. The moment his identity was exposed, he was killed on the spot by one of the 3 real gods of Black Flame sect, real god suffering. Killed. Xing Hui took a step forward, his eyes filled with killing intent as he said, "Since Hidden Sword Venerable is dead, There's no need for any of you to exist anymore. I will make sure that all of you from the Black Flame sect will be buried with Hidden Sword Venerable. As he spoke, he no longer wasted any more words. He summoned the Scarlet Abyss Sword, and a suffocating and terrifying power instantly erupted from it. When Dharmaraja Mi Shwe saw that Tsing Hui was going to kill him without hesitation after he told him about Hidden Sword Venerable's death, his mind went blank. Does he not want my item? Don't you want my chaos rank anymore? Seeing how the green ruin sword was about to slash down and take his life in the next second, he called out in a hurry, "Wait, wait. I don't know whether the Hidden Sword Venerable is dead or not. It's just that the true god of suffering personally went to kill him, which is why I speculated that the Hidden Sword Venerable is most likely dead. If you really want to know the exact whereabouts of the Hidden Sword Venerable, I can ask around through the channels of the Chaotic Divine Hall. Your Excellency Pak Hui, please calm down. We'll ask him to find out if Hidden Sword Venerable is fine. If Hidden Sword Venerable isn't dead, why don't we exchange the lives of the two Almighties in exchange for Hidden Sword Venerable's life? I'm afraid that's not a good idea. How can we be sure that he's telling the truth?" Before Tsing Hui could speak, Flying Fish Sword Saint said hesitantly, "If we don't handle this well, we'll be in big trouble. If the Black Flame sect sends a true god here during the exchange, how are we going to defend ourselves? I'm afraid the White Rainbow Sword sect won't let the Divine God go against the Black Flame sect for Hidden Sword Supreme." What Dharmaraja Mi Shwe said was right. Our White Rainbow Sword sect and the Divine Dao sect are fighting fiercely. If we offend the Black Flame sect, the situation will become even more difficult. I will give it a try and see if I can convince my grandmother, Rainbow Sword Master. If she were to appear, I believe the Black Flame religion would definitely give us some face. You have to know that the White Rainbow Sword sect is in trouble, but so is the Black Flame religion. Currently, the Divine Wilderness is constantly infiltrating the Black Flame religion, and they have the intention to split the three true gods of the Black Flame religion. Currently, the three true gods are seemingly united but divided at heart due to the division of the Divine Wilderness. Even if True God Suffering were to become enemies with the White Rainbow Sword sect, True God One and True God World Savior would definitely drag him down and suppress his reputation to announce their legitimacy in the Black Flame religion. Sword Saint Long Shao said after pondering for a while. If Sword Master Chong Hong appears, this matter can be considered safe. However, we might as well ask him if he knows the whereabouts of Senior Yun Fu. If Senior Yun Fu is also in their hands, then Sword Master Chong Hong's involvement in this matter is even more justified. Sword Saint Flying Fish said. "Alright, to be safe, let's interrogate the other Shakyamuni. I'll have to trouble everyone in the White Rainbow Sword sect," Tsing Hui said in a deep voice. This matter could be said to have arisen because of Hidden Sword Saint. Even the Flying Fish Sword Saint was in danger because of Hidden Sword Saint. Hidden Sword Saint had done him a great favor, and the matter that should have belonged to him had caused everyone in the White Rainbow Sword sect to rush over. Tsing Hui naturally had to remember this favor. As for Tianqiong was already in a precarious situation, and it wasn't good to complicate matters. "Your Excellency Pak Hui is too courteous. We are also trying to save our Senior Yun Fu." Sword Saint Flying Fish was very respectful to Tsing Hui, and it didn't seem like he was treating him as an equal. Soon, the three of them woke Shakyamuni up. After some questioning, they found out that Sword Saint Yun Fu had been captured alive. The Black Flame sect had captured Sword Saint Yun Fu alive for two reasons. On one hand, they wanted to interrogate Sword Saint Yun Fu about the many Dao-carrying items and the chaos incantation on him. On the other hand, they didn't want to kill Sword Saint Yun Fu and completely fall out with the White Rainbow Sword sect. After all, Divinity Realm Almighties were the absolute upper echelons of any top force. They were like pillars of support. If they killed Golden Core Elders and Deacons, the White Rainbow Sword sect might be angry and retaliate, but they wouldn't be hostile. However, if an Almighty died in the hands of the Black Flame sect, it would be tantamount to an all-out war. It was because they couldn't kill Sword Saint Yunfu that the flying fish Sword Saint was able to escape 20,000 kilometers away from Shakyamuni Mishue and Shakyamuni. Soon, the group of people arrived at the Chaos Temple and met up in the Flying Fish Sword Saint's personal space. On Tsing Hui's side, the Flying Fish Sword Saint and Valiant Sword Saint brought Dharma King Mishue and Dharma King Chanji. On the other hand, on the Black Flame sect's side, there were two famous almighties, Dharma King Galuo and Dharma King Black Lotus. Dharma King Black Lotus was a celestial earth-level expert. He was much more important than the ordinary almighties. Seeing Shakyamuni Jialua and Shakyamuni Black Lotus bring Sword Saint Yunfu over, Sword Saint Fei Yu and Sword Saint Long Shao hurriedly asked, "Senior Yunfu, are you all right?" Obviously, Sword Saint Yunfu had just recovered a little. He was barely able to maintain the state of communicating with the Chaos Temple. Hearing the two's question, he couldn't help but laugh bitterly. "I'm fine. I was just tortured. This time, I'm in big trouble. I was actually captured alive. Sigh, in the end, I still have to rely on the two of you to come and help me. I'm really ashamed." Seeing that Sword Saint Yunfu was fine, Sword Saint Fei Yu and Sword Saint Long Shao heaved a sigh of relief. At this moment, Tsing Hui looked behind Dharma King Galuo and Dharma King Black Lotus and asked in a deep voice, "Where's Sword Saint Hidden Sword? We agreed to exchange one person for one person. We have your Black Flame sect's Dharma King Chanji and Dharma King Mishue in exchange for Sword Saint Hidden Sword and Yunfu. Why do I only see Yunfu and not Sword Saint Hidden Sword? I'm very sorry about Sword Saint Hidden Sword. He was killed by our suffering true god," Dharma King Black Lotus said with a look of pity. "What? Brother Sword Saint Hidden Sword, he actually—" Sword Saint Yunfu was in disbelief when he heard the news. "Are you kidding?" However, Tsing Hui didn't believe him. He said expressionlessly, "I just sent someone to Sword Saint Hidden Sword to take a look. The sword essence that he left behind hasn't completely disappeared. It's obvious that he's still alive. Are you trying to fool me?" Dharma King Black Lotus's face changed slightly. He looked at Tsing Hui with a tinge of coercion in his eyes and asked, "Who are you?" "I'm the Supreme Elder of Sword Saint Hidden Sword." Tsing Hui didn't want to create trouble for Tianqiong at such a crucial moment. The Supreme Elder of Sword Saint Hidden Sword? Someone like Sword Saint Hidden Sword. Dharma King Black Lotus's eyes shone brightly. After a while, he said, "Sword Saint Hidden Sword was killed by Suffering True God personally. When we asked, Suffering True God's answer was vague. I guess I misunderstood. Sword Saint Hidden Sword shouldn't be dead yet." Tsing Hui faintly sensed that something was wrong with Dharma King Black Lotus's expression. However, he didn't hesitate to ask, "What are you waiting for? Or do you think that the lives of the Almighties in Black Flame sect aren't more important than Sword Saint Hidden Sword?" As soon as Qing Su finished speaking, Shakyamuni Chanji and Shakyamuni Mishue's faces became rather ugly. They looked at Shakyamuni Black Lotus immediately. Even though they did not say anything, their dissatisfaction was clear. Dharma King Black Lotus couldn't decide the life and death of the two almighties. He originally thought that Sword Saint Hidden Sword was just someone who was accompanying him. He didn't expect one of the three people in front of him to be an almighty from Sword Saint Hidden Sword. If he didn't bring Sword Saint Hidden Sword out, he definitely wouldn't let it go. Thinking of this, he hesitated for a while before saying, "I'll ask Suffering True God again." Then, his body gradually dimmed. "I didn't expect Sword Saint Hidden Sword to give birth to someone like you. No wonder Brother Sword Saint Hidden Sword could settle this grudge that had lasted for 1,000 years. After Dharma King Black Lotus left, the Floating Cloud Sword Saint couldn't help but look at Tsing Hui. "Thank you for your help, Floating Cloud Sword Saint." Tsing Hui bowed slightly. The Floating Cloud Sword Saint quickly waved his hand and said, "It's just a joke. Not only did I not help Sword Saint Hidden Sword, I even got myself into trouble. In the end, I even had to trouble you, Flying Fish, and Long Shao to save me. Sigh, don't worry, Floating Cloud Sword Saint. Everything will be fine." Tsing Hui said. While they were talking, Master Black Lotus, who had left, appeared again. true God Suffering has said that Hidden Sword Venerable has indeed been captured by him. Because Hidden Sword Venerable is proficient in the art of sword forging, the true God wants to force Hidden Sword Venerable to hand over the many Taoist items, flying swords, and divine weapons that Hidden Sword Venerable has. Because he did not control his strength, Hidden Sword Venerable has been severely injured. I'm afraid he won't be able to wake up in a short period of time. Therefore, we can either postpone the exchange of hostages to 10 days later, or he can bring the unconscious Hidden Sword Venerable over and do the exchange directly. If you're worried, we can let you choose the exchange location. Chapter 596. Your Excellency Pakui, what do you think? Sword Saint Flying Fish and Sword Saint Long Xiao looked at Tsing Hui. After all, the two Guardian Kings were captured alive by Tsing Hui. We've chosen the location. I'll inform you when the time comes. During the transaction, you can't bring more than 3 people with you. Tsing Hui said, Sure, I hope you won't bring more than 5 people with you. Guardian King Black Lotus nodded. Just inform us when you've chosen the location. During this period of time, please don't hurt the 2 Guardian Kings from Black Flame Sect. Don't worry, we won't do such a despicable thing. Tsing Hui said calmly. Guardian King Mi Shui and Guardian King Chan Ji let out a sigh of relief when they knew that they didn't have to go through the torture anymore. Soon, the group left the Chaos Temple. After leaving the Chaos Temple, Sword Saint Flying Fish knocked Guardian King Mi Shui and Guardian King Chan Ji unconscious. Is there a suitable location for the transaction nearby? Tsing Hui turned to Sword Saint Long Xiao. There are a few locations. However, the Dragon Sword Sect isn't within the Rainbow Sword Sect's territory. Do you want to move towards the Rainbow Sword Sect's direction? Even if there's an accident, the experts from the Rainbow Sword Sect will be able to provide support immediately. Sword Saint Long Xiao said. There's no need to trouble the sword masters of the Rainbow Sword Sect. I believe the Black Flame Sect won't joke around with the lives of the 2 Almighties. Tsing Hui didn't want to owe too many favors. I'd better inform Sword Master Long Rainbow about this, just in case. Yes. It's better to be prepared. The Flying Fish Sword Saint agreed. If that's the case, I'll have to trouble you. Hee, Your Excellency Pakui, you don't have to be so courteous. In fact, this matter is related to the Rainbow Sword Sect. It's also a matter of the Rainbow Sword Sect. Your Excellency Pakui, please don't worry. If it's possible, we'd like to invite Your Excellency Pakui to the Rainbow Sword Sect as a guest. I have heard of the White Rainbow Sword Sect for a long time. Moreover, I have made 2 deals with Sword Master Bai Heng back then. If I can pay him a visit now, I can also thank him for helping me when I, Venerable Heavenly Torch, was in danger. Sword Master Bai Heng, for the sake of our White Rainbow Sword Sect, she is quite considerate. Sword Saint Flying Fish, Sword Saint Long Xiao, and the rest of the Sword Masters felt guilty. In fact, in terms of seniority, Sword Master Bai Heng was still a generation younger than them. However, in terms of achievements, he was far behind them. That forest is a woodland 16,000 kilometers away from our Dragon Sword Sect, and belongs to the edge of our White Rainbow Sword Sect's territory. It is only 20,000 kilometers away from the White Rainbow Sword Sect, and although this forest does not cover a large area, less than 3,000 kilometers in length, due to the natural formation within it, it has always been shrouded in a dense fog, like a nightmare that has yet to wake up, so it is called the Nightmare Forest by the locals. If anything happens in the vicinity, we will immediately hide in the Nightmare Forest, and can also delay for some time until our White Rainbow Sword Sect's reinforcements arrive. Sword Saint Long Xiao said. Then let's go to the Nightmare Forest. Tsing Hui nodded. I've already informed my grandmother, the Rainbow Sword Master, and she sent Sword Saint Ji Xian to assist us. The Flying Fish Sword Saint's eyes lit up. Sword Saint Ji Xian? He's a peak expert of the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth. With him around, we'll definitely be safe. The 3 of them filled in the details, and soon they were done discussing. After deciding on the location of the transaction, Sword Saint Long Xiao came forward to inform Discipline King Black Lotus of the location. As the location of the transaction was less than 80,000 kilometers away from the Black Flame sect, Disciplined King Black Lotus and the rest only needed a day and a night to fly there with their flying artifacts. Xing Hui and the rest immediately went to the Nightmare Forest in advance to adjust their condition. Moreover, when they arrived at the Nightmare Forest, a middle-aged man whose every action and every word seemed to be able to draw support from the energy of the world was already waiting for them there. Sword Saint Ji Xian. Sword Saint Long Xiao and the Flying Fish Sword Saint stepped forward and bowed slightly when they saw the man. You should have told me about this earlier. Disciplined King Black Lotus of the Black Flame sect is not weak. With me here, he'll be a little cautious and won't dare to act rashly. Sword Saint Ji Xian said. It's not convenient to delay Sword Saint Ji Xian's time. The two of them thanked him. What delay can there be? Anyway, this place is not far from the sect. 1 or 2 days will be enough to settle the matter. Sword Saint Ji Xian said and turned to Xing Hui. You're Master Pak Hui from the Sky Dome sect, right? I have to thank you for saving Flying Fish. I have to thank Sword Saint Flying Fish and Sword Saint Floating Cloud for assisting Hidden Sword Venerable. Xing Hui said and shook his head. He did not want to continue on this topic. Disciplined King Black Lotus and the rest should need more than half a day to arrive here for the transaction. However, for safety's sake, let's check the surroundings first. All right. The few of them nodded and quickly looked around. When they confirmed that there was nothing unusual, they quickly stepped into the Nightmare Forest and waited for Disciplined King Black Lotus and the rest to arrive. Just as everyone had guessed, the Nightmare Forest was filled with a large amount of fog. It was like a nightmare, causing one to be half awake. This kind of fog seems to have a certain suppressive effect on the cultivator's spirit. Xing Hui said thoughtfully as he sensed the changes in his sword will in his spiritual world. Indeed. Sword Master Pengguang from the Baihong Sword sect specially studied this place for 3 years. In the end, he found out that although the fog has an effect on the spirit, no matter how much he refined it, the effect was still too weak. Xing Hui nodded. If anything were to happen here, retreating would be enough to buy them enough time. The rest of the time was to wait. The Black Flame sect had 2 almighties in their hands and it seemed like they did not dare to act rashly. In less than 12 hours, 3 rays of sword light shot from the horizon. The one in the lead was Disciplined King Black Lotus. Other than Disciplined King Black Lotus, there were 2 other people with him. One of them was Disciplined King Galuo while the other one had the aura of an almighty. However, Sword Saint Ji Xian, Flying Fish Sword Saint, and Long Xiao Sword Saint were unfamiliar with him. I don't think I've seen this almighty before. Could he be a new expert from the Black Flame sect? Could he be a celestial phenomenon Earth-level expert in disguise? Sword Saint Ji Xian, Flying Fish Sword Saint, and Long Xiao Sword Saint were a little hesitant. Xing Hui, on the other hand, used the aura examination skill immediately and quickly determined his strength based on his aura. This is indeed an almighty. He didn't hide his aura. As long as he's an almighty, we don't have to worry too much. Even if he has derived a divine power, we're more than enough to deal with him. As he spoke, he deliberately used the aura examination skill to observe the surroundings to ensure that there were no experts hiding outside waiting for an opportunity to make a move. The people they brought are indeed Senior Brother Yun Fu and Sword Venerable Master Hidden Sword. However, I've only seen Sword Venerable Master Hidden Sword twice. I can't guarantee. Flying Fish Sword Saint glanced at the 2 people brought by Black Lotus Shakyamuni and then turned his gaze to Xing Hui. Xing Hui's gaze focused on Shakyamuni for a moment. Most of his time was spent sizing up the unconscious old man that Shakyamuni was carrying. There was a hint of coldness in his expression. That's indeed Sword Venerable Master Hidden Sword. Let's go over and trade. I've already looked around. There are no other powerful auras hiding within 100 kilometers. Sword Saint Ji Xian, Flying Fish Sword Saint, Long Xiao Sword Saint, and the others responded. Together with Xing Hui, they quickly shot out of the Nightmare Forest and landed in front of Black Lotus Shakyamuni and the others. After sizing up Sword Saint Ji Xian, Flying Fish Sword Saint, and the others, Black Lotus Shakyamuni and the others focused on Xing Hui. After a while, he smiled and said, "So it's Sword Saint Ji Xian. Sword Saint Ji Xian, I haven't seen you for more than 10 years. How have you been? Don't worry. We're not far from the Fogbow Sword sect. You should know that if you act rashly, the experts of the Fogbow Sword sect will quickly arrive. At that time, not only Shakyamuni Mi Shui and Shakyamuni Chanji, but even you will be trapped here. Of course, we don't want to be enemies with the Fogbow Sword sect." Black Lotus Shakyamuni smiled. Then, his gaze fell on Shakyamuni Mi Shui and Shakyamuni Chanji, who were being carried by Long Shao Sword Saint. He said, "Can we trade now?" "Sure." Long Shao Sword Saint was about to carry Shakyamuni Mi Shui and Shakyamuni Chanji forward. However, Xing Hui took the two of them and said, "I'll do the trade." Long Shao Sword Saint nodded and let the two of them go. Xing Hui carried the two of them, one in each hand. As for Black Lotus Shakyamuni, the unknown Almighty brought Floating Cloud Sword Saint and Hidden Sword Supreme forward. Soon, the two of them were in the middle. One at a time. As Qing Su said that, he tossed the secret blood Shakyamuni to the great figure first, while the great figure tossed the Floating Cloud Sword Saint over. To prevent any accidents from happening to the hostages, both parties knocked them out. Hence, the entire process was smooth. "Sir, don't worry. We don't want to be enemies with the Fogbow Sword sect." Seeing that Xing Hui was so cautious, the Almighty smiled and handed Hidden Sword Supreme over to Xing Hui. Xing Hui took Hidden Sword Supreme and sensed his condition. Hidden Sword Supreme was severely injured and he might not be able to recover in a few months. However, his cultivation was still there and he didn't suffer any irreversible injuries. With a year's rest, he would be able to recover completely. "Take him away." Xing Hui glanced at Shakyamuni Chanji and said coldly, "All right." The Almighty walked to Shakyamuni Chanji's side and protected him. Then he smiled at Xing Hui and said, "Sir, if I'm not wrong, you must have cultivated the secret skill that Hidden Sword Supreme came up with, right?" Xing Hui frowned slightly. However, when he saw Qing Su's reaction, the great being seemed to have finally confirmed something. If that's the case, then it doesn't matter whether the venerable of the hidden sword dies or not. He's very stubborn. He'd rather die than submit. I wonder, can you endure the various interrogations after you're captured alive? Captured alive? Xing Hui's expression changed instantly. Almost as soon as the mysterious Almighty said those words, a stalwart figure suddenly appeared out of thin air. In the next moment, a domain power that seemed to be able to freeze the void swept out brazenly with him as the center. Chapter 597. Realm. Suffering Real God. Behind Xing Hui, Sword Saint Ji Xian, Sword Saint Flying Fish, and Sword Saint Xiao Long exclaimed in shock at the same time. Suffering Real God. Suffering Real God, one of the three divine realm supreme giants from Black Flame sect, had come personally. The Almighty that Sword Saint Ji Xian, Sword Saint Flying Fish, and Sword Saint Xiao Long couldn't recognize was really just a normal Almighty. He wasn't considered a great threat. However, he was obviously an Almighty who had upgraded his personal space to level 10, allowing his personal space to contain living things. Suffering Real God, who was a divine master, was hiding in the personal space of the Almighty. At the very moment when the two Almighties from Black Flame sect were exchanged, he quickly pulled Suffering Real God out from his personal space. At the same time, he also put Master Mi Shui and Master Chanji, who were unconscious, into his personal space and retreated, Realm. At the very moment when his body was engulfed by the power of Realm, Xing Hui immediately put Sword Saint Yun Fu and Sword Saint Hidden Sword into his personal space. At the same time, he retreated and tried to get out of the coverage of the power of Realm. However, he retreated quickly, but Suffering Real God's realm spread even faster. At the moment when he retreated, Suffering Real God's realm had already covered him completely. Then, the invincible existence from Black Flame sect who had reached Divine Realm didn't care about bullying the weak. He didn't even bother to say any nonsense. In the next moment, he had already performed his divine power. A dark red flowing light whizzed towards Tsing Hui. The flowing light turned into a strange magma-like existence the moment it was shot out. It was filled with black flames, and there seemed to be countless vengeful spirits screaming in pain in the flames. The sound was ear-piercing and it shook one's soul. It was so uncomfortable that one almost puked blood. True God-suffering, you actually dared to enter the territory of our White Rainbow Sword sect and attack the almighties of our White Rainbow Sword sect. Does your Black Flame sect want to start an all-out war with our White Rainbow Sword sect? Pak Hui, be careful. This is the divine ability of the true God of suffering. It's called Nether Breath. You can't face this divine ability head-on. Otherwise, the spirits contained in the Nether Breath will entangle and attack your divine soul, causing your divine soul to be severely injured. At the same time, the magma-like substance will explode after hitting the target, forming a magma domain that will eventually envelop the enemy completely. Hurry and retreat. You absolutely cannot fight with it. I've already sent a message to the sect. The Rainbow Sword Master will be here in the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. Only a realm can go against another realm. Sword Saint Ji Xian, who was far away, saw the scene and instantly roared. However, Tsing Hui, whose sword light was shattered, didn't seem to hear Sword Saint Ji Xian's roar at all. His gaze was fixed on the breath of the netherworld that was mixed with the power of the entire realm. It was as if Mount Tai was pressing down on him, and it was also as vast as an avalanche. The sword essence in his spiritual world was like a sun that had been ignited, and it suddenly exploded. Light chasing. All this while, as he hadn't had a real opponent, he could only roughly guess the power of his light chasing. However, he couldn't determine exactly how strong it was. The three invincible giants of the Divine Realm in the Black Flame sect were all ordinary Divine Realm experts. They represented the most average and ordinary level of the Divine Realm experts. Right now, he wanted to test whether his limit was enough to fight against this invincible existence of the Divine Realm in front of him. Sun Glory. His sword essence exploded and he activated the light chasing. In the next moment, the power in Tsing Hui's body was like a landslide and a tsunami. It poured out completely. The Scarlet Abyss Sword's blade seemed to be burning with a blazing sun that gave off boundless light. The light was so strong that it even seemed like it was going to disperse Real God Suffering's realm power. Real God Suffering's gaze fell on Tsing Hui. He seemed to be surprised that he could unleash such a powerful attack. However, that was all. As his empty hand pressed in Tsing Hui's direction, the realm power in all directions was like a raging tsunami or an erupting volcano. It swept out endlessly, and the continuous power was added to the breath of the netherworld. As a result, the supernatural power was no longer a supernatural power but turned into a power that could destroy everything in front of it. In the black flame, there were countless aggrieved souls wailing and screaming. It was ear-piercing, and it was enough to cause an ordinary person's divine soul to disperse and their consciousness to collapse. Such rumble! Just like a falling meteor hitting a raging magma torrent, boundless light and terrifying shock wave exploded in an instant. With Tsing Hui as the center, the space within a radius of tens of meters was twisted and destroyed. Even though it was Real God Suffering's realm, there was a 30-meter wide hole that was destroyed due to the shock, and the area became a realm vacuum. Not bad attack. Its power isn't inferior to a single target attack great superpower. However, to face an invincible existence of the divine realm, you are overestimating yourself. Real God Suffering looked surprised, but there wasn't much change in his expression. Half of the breath of the netherworld was destroyed by Tsing Hui's sword. However, there was more realm power that was mixed with the energy characteristic of the breath of the netherworld. Very soon, it filled the realm with Tsing Hui as the center. Then, it formed an even more majestic and violent torrent that headed towards Tsing Hui. At that moment, Tsing Hui was like an ordinary warrior standing in front of a river. He was trying to use the sword in his hand to block the torrent that was coming towards him. No matter how one looked at it, it seemed unbelievable and hopeless. However, After using the sword of the glorious sun to destroy the most powerful impact of the breath of the netherworld, Tsing Hui stood in front of this superpower without any change in his figure. The brilliant sword essence continued to burn and explode from his spiritual world. The screams and wails of the countless vengeful spirits in the breath of the netherworld were all burned to ashes by his own sword essence and the blazing brilliance of the Long Yuan sword before they could come within 3 meters of him. He just stood there like a reef that would never retreat. He slashed his sword at the breath of the netherworld in front of him again and again. Rumble! The breath of the netherworld, which had been strengthened by the realm power, surged forward violently. However, it was like the waves that hit the reef. No matter how many times they came, they couldn't escape the fate of being crushed and splattered in all directions. If some attacks couldn't be crushed with 1 slash, then 2 slashes would be used. If 2 slashes couldn't be crushed, then 3 slashes would be used. If the breath of the netherworld was crushed and the realm power continued to surge from all directions, forming an even more violent attack, then 4 slashes, 5 slashes, 6 slashes, 7 slashes, 8 slashes, 9 slashes, 10 slashes, gale, torrential rain, thunder, tsunami. In the beginning, suffering real God was still able to maintain a calm expression. He looked at Tsing Hui, who was struggling in front of his realm power and divine power, as though he was admiring a fighting beast that was struggling before its death. However, as time went by, his realm power and divine power were unleashed wave after wave. Wave after wave swept out, wave after wave of impact, but they still couldn't do anything to Tsing Hui. His face grew grave. Not only suffering real God, but even Black Lotus Shakyamuni, Gawa Shakyamuni, and the mysterious Almighty, who originally thought that Tsing Hui would be dealt with very quickly, looked at Tsing Hui, who was standing in suffering real God's realm, and their expressions gradually froze. This is, as for Flying Fish Sword Saint, who originally knew that Tsing Hui was strong enough to contend against a divine realm expert, he couldn't help but open his mouth wide. Mr. Pak Hui, in the realm of an invincible divine realm expert, he actually resisted the divine power of the invincible divine realm expert. Chapter 598. Not only Sword Saint Flying Fish, but Sword Saint Ji Xian and Sword Saint Long Shao didn't have a good reaction either. The two of them stared with their eyes wide open as they looked at the extremely powerful sword lights that were continuously swung in the realm. They felt like they were in a dream. This is a great divine power? How can the speed of him releasing a great divine power be so fast? Real God Suffering's divine power surged, and he could already slash out 3 sword lights that aren't inferior to a great divine power. There's such a great divine power in the world? Only a realm can fight against a realm. Since when did an invincible big shot in the holy realm not be able to do anything to an almighty in the divine realm under the circumstances of using a realm? Did I make a mistake, or is real God Suffering showing mercy? Pak Hui? Who exactly is she? How did Sky nurture such a monster? Rumble. They couldn't win after a long battle. Plus, they were close to the White Rainbow Sword sect, and the Rainbow Sword Master would rush over in no time. Real God Suffering wasn't as confident as before, and he became impatient. Fast? Let's see how fast you can be. Along with a cold humph, Real God Suffering suddenly pressed down with his hand, and the power of the entire realm shrank to its limit. With the combination of the breath of the netherworld, the power of the realm moved towards Tsing Hui continuously. It seemed like he was going to bury Tsing Hui completely in the realm. Bury the void. Rumble. The surging energy current surged along with Real God Suffering's realm and instantly shattered Tsing Hui's blazing realm that was formed by sword lights. It seemed like it would swallow Tsing Hui entirely in the blink of an eye. Sunburst. Just as Real God Suffering's realm changed, Tsing Hui roared and changed his swordsmanship. A terrifying energy current that was a few times stronger than the sword of the glory of sun suddenly exploded from the Scarlet Abyss sword and went head-on against the surging realm current. The two powers collided in the middle of the intersection and instantly shattered the power of the realm within a radius of a few hundred meters with the collision range as the center. It turned into a vacuum, and even in the rectangular vacuum, there was a fiery red shadow of a huge sword. It seemed like the entire realm had been torn apart by the sword. The domain was ripped apart, and Ching Su advanced valiantly. Before the true god of suffering could even tear apart the shattered domain that had just been ripped apart, a streak of extremely dazzling light had already erupted once again at unimaginable speed. Sunburst. Rumble. The power of the realm that real god suffering had originally condensed was torn apart by Tsing Hui's sword earlier, and the remaining power of the realm didn't have time to recover. At that moment, it faced the attack of Sunburst that wasn't any weaker than the previous sword. The boundless realm that was originally 30 kilometers long and surging with energy was like a piece of cloth that was torn apart. In an instant, a huge gap with a diameter of 10 kilometers was torn apart. After the billowing flames that were mixed with suffocating heat tore apart the realm, the remaining power slashed toward real god suffering, who was at the center of the realm. The sword light shone brightly and was blazing. Wherever the sword light went, gods and demons would flee. Even though this blazing sword light had yet to completely cut through the suffering true god's domain and was still completely offset by the following domain power, the terrifying heat wave that came rushing over finally made this high and mighty invincible divine realm giant's expression change drastically. Looking at the majestic domain that had been torn apart with a vacuum of nearly 10 kilometers in front of him, he couldn't help but exclaim in shock and horror, "This is impossible." Sunburst. Just as real god suffering was shocked because his realm was almost torn apart, the third sword light that was like an explosion of stars shone in the realm again. As the previous two swords were stopped by real god suffering's realm power, although they were still powerful, most of them were offset by real god suffering's realm power. As such, there wasn't any earth-shattering power. However, the third stroke followed closely behind the previous two swords that had torn apart real god suffering's realm. In the realm that was torn apart by 1/3, the sword light exploded. It was like a blazing sun that suddenly rose and gave off a suffocating and terrifying supreme divine light. The divine light was vast and it shone on the world. Real god suffering's realm power that had been weakened by the previous 3 strokes was like snow that was exposed to the sun, and it melted quickly. The blazing brilliance swept toward real god suffering, who was at the center of the realm. This made real God, who stood at the peak of the cultivation world, reveal fear in his eyes for the first time. Such power. How could there be such power? Emperor Yen. Real God suffering didn't dare to underestimate Tsing Hui anymore. He roared, and a statue that was filled with flames suddenly appeared above his head, suppressing his realm power. Emperor Yan's holy statue. It was a treasure that real God suffering had obtained from an ancient cave dwelling. Its level was a shocking level 15. He would only use it when he was fighting with other invincible existences of the divine realm. As soon as Emperor Yan's holy statue appeared, there was a dazzling divine light that appeared from the holy statue. It combined with a part of real God suffering's realm power and turned into an extremely strong barrier. It blocked the sword light of the sunburst at the very last moment. In an instant, it was like a meteor that fell to the ground. A shockwave visible to the naked eye exploded from the tip of the sword of sunburst, fiercely compressing the surrounding air, forming a huge ring. Within the ring, countless lightning bolts and magnetic storms were recklessly bursting out, mixed with a kind of doomsday aura, sweeping in all directions, annihilating all the clouds within a radius of 100 kilometers. Even Sword Saint Flying Fish, Sword Saint Xiaolong, Sword Saint Ji Xian, Dharma King Galuo, and Dharma King Black Lotus, who were fighting absent-mindedly not far away from real God suffering and the rest, were shocked by the energy shockwave. Retreat! Retreat! Retreat quickly! This power, it's not inferior to a divine power. Moreover, it's a divine power that can destroy everything within a radius of 100 kilometers. Heavens! A powerful being can actually fight against a divine being to such an extent? If I'm not wrong, just now, Her Excellency Pak Hui tore real God Suffering's realm apart head-on. Fearful and incredulous cries were heard from their mouths. At this moment, the 6 of them did not care about fighting anymore. They retreated as fast as they could. The power of the shockwave was not restrained by the realm. It was mighty and destructive. However, this was not the end. When Tsing Hui's sword hit the stream of light formed by the divine statue of Emperor Yen, a terrifying rebounding force swept through Tsing Hui's entire body. Tsing Hui's internal organs were almost destroyed at the same time, and he spat out blood. Even with his level 10 recovery ability, he could not heal such a serious injury immediately. However, his expression did not change at all. In his spiritual world, sword intent soared into the sky. Divine. The true God suffering in front of him was a divine, an invincible existence that truly stood at the peak of Tianhuang region. He was a supreme giant that could control the life and death of billions of lives on countless continents. Now, a divine was beaten to the point that he could not breathe and was even forced into a corner. What a glorious achievement, what a great battle record. Right now, he was only one step away from pushing this glory and greatness to an unprecedented peak and going against a divine as an almighty. An unprecedented feat was right in front of him. How could he give up halfway? An even more violent and blazing sword intent exploded in Tsing Hui's spiritual world. Suddenly, Tsing Hui's speed, which was already extremely fast and almost exceeded the limits of the vision of cultivators of the same level, became even faster. All the vital essence in his body, all the power circulating in the deep red sword, and even the speed and power of the ignition of sword intent reached an unprecedented level. It was as if he had escaped into a high-speed space-time and a high-dimensional world that ordinary people could not capture. Logically speaking, the sword of sunlight that he had just slashed out should have taken a breather and prepared for, but it had already formed on the deep red sword's blade again. First, rumble! The divine statue of Emperor Yen, which had blocked Tsing Hui's sword, emitted an even more dazzling light when he slashed the second time. This layer of light was like the final glow of the setting sun, and it completely dimmed the moment the sword of sunlight's light dissipated. How is this possible? How can a divine power be released to such a violent extent? True God Suffering looked at the dim light of the divine statue of Emperor Yen, which had lost its charm and was falling toward him. He was so shocked that his mind went blank. Today's battle had almost subverted his understanding of common sense. However, in the next moment, he no longer had the time to think about why the divine power of the person in front of him could be so unreasonable like a violent storm. This was because Tsing Hui's fifth sword was coming. As the fifth sword slashed out, True God Suffering's domain was crushed into pieces. Without the barrier of the domain, in his vision, the brilliant and blazing sword light was like a falling sun, carrying a despairing and suffocating sharpness and heat. It rushed toward him as if it was going to burn him, an invincible existence in the divine realm, into ashes and completely erase him from the entire world. However, the divine. He was a divine. An invincible divine who was above the saint realm. How could a divine be willing to admit defeat in front of an almighty? No! True God Suffering roared, his voice containing endless fury. I'm a divine. How dare a puny saint humiliate me? As he roared, the original power of the domain in True God Suffering's body suddenly burned. The domain, which had been shattered into pieces by Tsing Hui's storm-like 5 sunburst swords, seemed to have been injected with an immeasurable vast and majestic power, and its power skyrocketed. At the same time, the aura of the divine spell on his body surged, and the power of the domain seemed to have been reinforced by an even more profound and mysterious power. The turbulent domain power inside became many times stronger and denser than before, and it spread wildly from the inside to the outside. The moment Tsing Hui's fifth sunburst sword slashed into the domain that was spreading outward, the entire domain shook, resisting and wearing down the sword light, which had been able to tear a hole of several kilometers in the domain, rapidly crushing it into nothingness. Chapter 599. Puff! Blood spurted out. Sing Hui's face was flushed and his entire body seemed to be on the verge of collapsing. However, looking at the surging realm power that was a few times stronger than suffering real God at his prime, sweeping toward him like a tsunami, there was a terrifying gleam in his eyes. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, / Forcefully supporting his body that was on the verge of collapsing, the sixth stroke of Sword of the Sun was unleashed again. However, it was different from the previous 5 strokes. The sixth stroke of Sword of the Sun wasn't aimed at real God suffering who was in the middle of the realm. Instead, it turned around and slashed along the gap of the realm that he had torn apart earlier. Suddenly, the swift and fierce sword chi that was mixed with the scorching heat that could burn the void exploded in the gap of the realm that hadn't been completely repaired. It tore apart the realm that had become thick and sturdy. A vacuum crack with a diameter of almost 10 kilometers extended from the inside out, as though it could shatter the heavens and the earth. Rumble! There was a sonic boom. Taking advantage of the moment when the realm power was shattered, Sing Hui flew across the sky with his sword. His entire body was like a rainbow that tore apart the light. In an instant, he shot out from the middle of real God suffering's realm power that was surging violently. Speed, it was unbelievably fast. Rumble! Sing Hui, who shot out from real God suffering's realm, sped up again in the void. He broke the sound barrier again and again, forming a thunderous roar that reverberated in the void. When real God suffering burned the origin of the realm and relied on divine skill to completely recover the realm power, Sing Hui had left him. It had expanded to a distance of 40 kilometers. Although real God suffering's realm had a diameter of 30 kilometers, the 30 kilometers was the diameter with him as the center. The radius of the realm was still only about 15 kilometers. 40 kilometers. It was far beyond the range of real God suffering's realm. Go! Sing Hui, who broke through the sky with all his speed, roared loudly. The void behind him seemed to have formed a dark gray ditch that swallowed the light due to his high speed. It was like a trace of the sky. At this moment, the flying fish Sword Saint Xiaolong, and Sword Saint Ji Xian, who had retreated almost 100 kilometers away to avoid the battle between Qing Su and True God of Suffering, suddenly returned to their senses. They looked at True God of Suffering, who had used a divine technique and burned his domain origin. His might had reached an unprecedented peak. The 3 of them turned around and ran without any hesitation. They did not give Shakyamuni Black Lotus, Shakyamuni Jialua, and the others any time to stop them. Bastard! I want you to die. The True God of Suffering, who had burnt the very essence of his domain, produced a roar of extreme fury. He erupted with his full speed, and a 12th class flying sword actually appeared beneath his feet. It swept out with the power of a domain that far exceeded the power of a regular sainthood expert's domain, shooting towards Qing Su. Before he had even arrived, his domain had already caused violent changes in the weather. At that moment, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled within a radius of over 100 kilometers. There was a storm, and the magnetic field in the surroundings was disrupted. It's a pity. Before he used his ability, Qing Su's speed had already reached a shocking 40,000 kilometers per hour. Now that he was in the state of light pursuit, and he was flying at full speed with his sword intent pushed to the limit, his speed barely reached 100,000 kilometers per hour. It was unbelievable. The True God of Suffering chased after him desperately, even using the eruption of her domain to suppress all the air currents and vital chi in front of her, turning it into a vacuum. After a few breaths, he was still left behind by Sing Hui. What kind of concept was 100,000 kilometers per hour? It meant that he only needed 1 or 2 breaths to fly 100 kilometers away. This was beyond the imagination of ordinary realm invincible great masters. Only those who had stepped into the insightful emptiness realm and touched the law of space, and the flying sword under their feet couldn't be lower than level 12, could be on par with such speed. You can't escape from me. Behind Sing Hui, real God Suffering's angry roar could be heard. Unfortunately, his voice was getting further and further away. He was escaping in the direction of Rainbow Sword Sect. No matter how bold real God Suffering was, he wouldn't dare to chase into Rainbow Sword Sect alone. One should know that Rainbow Sword Sect was slightly more powerful than Black Flame Sect. If real God Suffering dared to invade Rainbow Sword Sect's territory, what awaited him would definitely be a thunderous attack that would make his injuries worse. If he didn't know what was good for him, he might even die on the spot. Sword light broke through the air. Ching Su had already flown several thousand kilometers away. When he used the aura inspection technique, he sensed a powerful presence that was no weaker than the true God of Suffering shoot through the air, heading straight towards the true God of Suffering. Clearly, the invincible sainthood powerhouse of the White Rainbow Sword Sect had taken action. As he couldn't feel real God Suffering's aura and there was a great master of divine realm from Rainbow Sword Sect blocking him, Xing Hui stopped after ensuring his safety. The moment he stopped flying his sword, the heavy burden on his body from the intense battle earlier was like a tsunami crashing into every cell in his body, causing him to be immersed in the pain of being crushed from the inside out. His face was pale, and his entire body was trembling non-stop. The pain? It wasn't inferior to the sword chi of 6 turns that Broken Sword had used on him back then. If my guess is correct, it's not my sword essence that limits the power of chasing light, it's my body. Although my sword essence keeps burning, it's not burning to the extreme. Instead, it's my body that's burdened when I use sword essence at full speed. If I had chosen to continue the battle with real God Suffering, with divine skill, even real God Suffering's burning realm would be torn apart and shattered by me again after a dozen slashes. Correspondingly, my body would collapse completely. Even Scarlet Abyss Sword would collapse due to the high frequency of sword brilliance. In the end, we would both be destroyed. Xing Hui sensed his body's condition and had a direct understanding of the situation that he was in. Without the help of backtracking skill, he could fight with an invincible great master of divine realm to the point of destruction. If he still had backtracking skill, of course, even if he really had backtracking skill to restore his condition to the peak, the possibility of killing a great master of divine realm was still very low. Which great master of divine realm wasn't at the 29th level? Moreover, they usually had a reserve of over 100 Taoist rhymes. At the critical moment, they could push their chaos level to the 30th level and use teleportation skills to escape. Refining my physical body is imminent. When he truly fixed the problem of his physical body, defeating a great master of divine realm would no longer be an extravagant hope. And with his speed, as long as that invincible great master of divine realm didn't have teleportation skills, the only thing that would await that invincible great master of divine realm would be death. Escape? No one would be able to escape from chasing light. After a long while, Xing Hui let out a long sigh. The powerful recovery ability of the 10th Order allowed his body to constantly produce a special kind of energy, nourishing his body, causing his cells that were on the verge of collapse to repair and regenerate rapidly. In just an hour of rest, his body had recovered by a large margin. Although the pain was still there was no abnormality on the surface. After waiting here for less than an hour, Sword Saint Ji Xian, Sword Saint Flying Fish, and Sword Saint Xiao Long, who were also fleeing in this direction, finally rushed over. Pakui. Your Excellency Pakui, are you okay? That's great. The 3 of them couldn't help but smile when they saw Xing Hui, who was almost unscathed. Xing Hui also nodded slightly. Discipline King Black Lotus and the others didn't chase after you, right? This is the territory of the White Rainbow Sword Sect. How dare they? Your Excellency Pakui, don't worry. Sword Master Chang Hong of the White Rainbow Sword Sect is already heading toward True God Suffering to ambush him. True God Suffering has already performed his divine skill. When Sword Master Chang Hong arrives, his divine skill will also dissipate. At that time, facing Sword Master Chang Hong of the White Rainbow Sword Sect who has divine skill, he will definitely not dare to be presumptuous. Sword Saint Ji Xian said with a smile. Since divine skill could only increase one's energy, after reaching the Saint Realm and the Divine Realm, the effect was not satisfactory. After all, the core of the Grand Dominion Realm was the realm, and the core of the Profound Void Realm was the precepts. Even the Crushing Void Realm was a combination of the precepts and energy to shatter the void. However, if one could use divine skill to increase one's realm or even two, they would still have a great advantage in battle. At the divine realm, a Grand Dominion realm expert who had a level 6 divine skill could easily defeat 5 or 6 invincible divine realm experts when the divine skill was released. Of course, the divine realm experts who were not proficient in speed were an exception. After all, everyone knew the drawbacks of divine skill. If they were not proficient in speed, the 4 or 5 invincible divine realm experts would only need to temporarily avoid the attack and delay the time for the divine skill to be released. Your Excellency Pak Hui, what kind of divine skill did you use when you fought with True God Suffering? When Sword Saint Ji Xian said this, there was a trace of fear in his eyes as if he was looking at a legend. Could it be the legendary Supreme Divine Ability? Supreme Divine Skill. These 4 words made Sword Saint Long Shao and Sword Saint Flying Fish hold their breaths. Supreme Divine Skill was a great legend that shone on the Divine Wilderness since ancient times. Other than the ancient Divine Wilderness era, there were records of Supreme Divine Skills being passed down. In the past 10,000 years, no one had heard of anyone being able to derive a Supreme Divine Skill. If Tsing Hui really derived a Supreme Divine Skill, he would become the first person in the Divine Wilderness in 10,000 years. I don't know whether it is a Supreme Divine Skill or not, but there are too few references. Tsing Hui shook his head. Sword Saint Ji Xian, Sword Saint Long Shao and the others nodded in understanding. At this moment, Sword Saint Long Shao seemed to have received some information. With a thought, he suddenly said to Tsing Hui, "Your Excellency Pak Hui, our Sword Master Chang Hong invites you to the White Rainbow Sword sect for a chat. I wonder if Your Excellency Pak Hui will do us the honor of coming." This time, it was all thanks to Sword Master Chang Hong stopping True God Suffering that we were able to escape unscathed. I will naturally pay him a visit to express my gratitude. Tsing Hui said. Sword Saint Ji Xian and the others understood that with Tsing Hui's speed, if he were to escape, True God Suffering wouldn't be able to stop him. At that moment, he was merely giving face to the White Rainbow Sword sect. At that moment, the few of them had a good impression of Tsing Hui. Especially when they thought of the scene where Tsing Hui had used his supreme divine skill to resist True God Suffering's divine skill head-on in the territory of True God Suffering, they were in awe of his power. Divine skill realm. He was already so powerful. If he were to make another breakthrough in the future and step into the divine realm, the entire divine wilderness would be overshadowed by the power of his divine ability. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.